Will, it's 6:30. Will you tell me when to start?
Yeah, just 1 second.
Sure, that's okay.
Trying to send you the list of public speakers
I'll just
in a way that you can use. This should do it.
squint a lot. Actually, this isn't bad. I've trained my eyes, much to the amazement of my eye doctor. Or I could say chagrin. It's okay. I'll make do, I think, with your help and everyone else's.
Okay, 1 second. I think I can get it to you very quickly.
Okay. Oh, Rebecca has her hand raised. Are you going to say we have quorum, Rebecca? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, she gave a thumbs up to say that.
Okay. So why don't we can we get started while you're doing that, or you could just we could manage somehow.
Okay.
Okay. So it's 6:30 or 6:31. Hi everyone, welcome to the December meeting of Community Board 8. We have, well, aside from the snow, and that's no excuse not to be here, we have a lot of people lined up to speak. So I just want to remind everyone that you have until 6:45 to sign up, and please indicate the topic that you're here to speak about, because I think there are a lot of speakers here on the Blood Center. We're going to begin with speakers not here for the Blood Center, and then we're going to try and organize the Blood Center speakers. I'd like to be able to have pros and cons, meaning pro Blood Center and not, and except that everyone seems to have indicated yes on your form, so I can't really tell. Anyway, we'll get to that when we get to it, which is in a few minutes. Let's begin. So Will, do you want to go through the procedures of what people ought to do?
Well, I just want to quickly check. Yes, I'll quickly just tell everybody that they are muted. If it's your first time at one of our meetings, you'll notice that you're muted. You cannot unmute yourself. That's how we run our meetings. You know, whenever Alita will call on you, you'll raise your hand in the participants menu, which is found at the bottom of your screen. It looks like two little people, says participants, has the number 153 next to it. A box will pop up on your screen. You'll click the button that says raise hand, and that'll help us find your name whenever we get to that point. As I just said, there's 155 people here. It's very hard to find people, but it is easy to find our state senator, Liz Krueger, and our state assembly member, Dan Court. And I'm gonna unmute them because
We're going to begin with them.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Hey, Dan, unmute yourself also. I think you're going first of the two of us.
Oh, well, since I guess I'm speaking in part on behalf of all of the state elected officials, Senator Krueger, Senator Serrano, my colleague in the Assembly Member Seawright. So this is the first time all four of us, or I shouldn't speak, we've had the honor of presenting a proclamation I have a digital copy, which I will send to Will in the board office. And this is a proclamation that eventually will find itself into plexiglass in Alita's home. But for now, I promise you, Alita, it's well maintained in my apartment. A small token of appreciation on behalf of the 4 state representatives for your work as community board chair. I will send Will the specific copy of the language, but I think for all of us who are in government as elected officials, we know there is rarely a more difficult job in community life than being a community board chair. And you have done an exceptional job. Some of the many whereas languages, whereas Alita Camp has served our community ably, admirably, and effectively, has demonstrated a dedication to bettering the neighborhood and improve the well-being of those with whom she has worked. And Alita Camp exemplifies what it means to be an esteemed and devoted public servant. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that we, myself, Assembly Member Seawright, and State Senators Kruger and Serrano, hereby declare that Alita Camp be honored for her outstanding commitment to the Upper East Side, and be it further proclaimed that a copy of this proclamation, suitably engrossed, shall be presented to Alita Camp on this very day. So in the absence of us being physically together, Alita, please take this virtual, and we'll have the digital proclamation on behalf of all 4 of the state elected officials, and I'm sure the council members share in this, of your fine dedication and commitment and your selfless work on behalf of your community. Thank you, Alita.
Thank you. I'm very honored, and I'm actually speechless. But it has been a great job and a great opportunity. So thank you, all of our state representatives. It has been quite an honor to work with you and get to know you a little bit over these 3 years. So thank you.
Thank you. Alita, I just want to jump in after Dan to say you have done an extraordinary job, and there are constant challenges. And so I'm always so admiring of people who are willing to take on the responsibility of participating in community boards and then sit through these meetings day in, day out for months on end. And then a few of you are willing to even consider the leadership positions, such as you as the chair. There is almost a rule my mother taught me: no good deed goes unpunished. And I think that is actually the description that should go on cards for people who are willing to be community board chairs. I tell everyone who tells me they want to run for elected office in New York City, first go sit through 3 or 4 community board meetings, and then tell me whether you really want to do this, because this is the bread and butter of what communities care about and the expectations they have of their elected officials. So unless you're prepared to delve deeply into the kind of work that community boards do, then you don't have the right stuff to want to run for office. So Alita, I don't know whether you want to run for office, but you certainly have proved you have the right stuff. And I also, on behalf of all the electeds that overlap Community Board 8, want to thank you and your team for doing such a terrific job for us.
Thank you. And I certainly couldn't have done it without all of the rest of the board and all of the board office. And I hope that you'll take my calls even after I'm finished. But thank you.
And I'd like to jump in. This is Senator Serrano, and I'm very grateful to listen to Liz Kruger's comments and Dan Quart for putting this all together, and to you, Alita, for your tremendous leadership these years. And as the senator just mentioned, we rely very heavily on the good work of the community boards. Oftentimes I'll hear about a project that's online in the district or something that's going on, and the first thing I want to do is find out where the community board stands on a particular issue. It's a lot of work, but it really does help us in the role of governance and the role of civics and better understanding what the community wants and what the concerns are. Community boards do that work. And as a former community board member myself, before becoming an elected official, I sat for for a number of years on Community Board 4 in the Bronx, I know these meetings run long and it's a huge time commitment. And to either be a member of the board or within leadership of the board, it is a tremendous service to our community. So I join my colleagues in government on the Upper East Side in saying thank you, Alita, for your tremendous work, and to the entire board for their tremendous leadership in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Serrano. It really has been an honor to work with all of you and to see you all here. I can't tell you what it means to me, so thank you. Also, I like your jaunty cap. There you go. Thank you. Will, I saw briefly Borough President Gail Brewer. Is she here?
I am here, and I want to join the echo. Alita, we too have a proclamation which will be delivered, and it talks about what I can't believe about you. You have about 7 different lives that you've led, each one more interesting than the next. And we had the pleasure of doing Manhattan Neighborhood Network together. That was really special. And also the fact that, you do mediation, you did feature films, you have been a professor. You use all of your skills in entertainment and construction and employment and security cases as an attorney. And all of these aspects you don't talk about because you're modest, but I can tell because every time there was PPE to be handed out, and God knows this pandemic has been long and horrible, you showed up. Whenever the small neat businesses help, you show up with the sign that tells them, as it should, how to deal with all of the COVID issues, and they put it in the window. I never saw so many people put things in windows so fast. And then up at Stanley Isaac's, an organization that everybody loves, and you have given them support on voter registration, on the census, but not just once, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And then of course, there's all the issues of running the meetings and how they get handled. Perhaps, what you've done at Kohler, testing, Roosevelt Island, never forgetting the importance of the residents of Kohler. And of course, thanks to all the elected officials and the community board, we again have written to the folks at health and hospitals and to the mayor stating, with all due respect, we know that there's a need for more hospital beds potentially, but Kohler's not the place to put them because of the wonderful residents, right next door to people who could be impacted and all the issues that you know only too well. You have been instrumental in supporting Kohler. And this weekend, here we are. It was a beautiful day. We're in line to get tested. Much thanks to Health and Hospitals, which brought, you gotta mute somebody. You brought the issue of testing, the need to the island, and there we were in line, and guess who shows up? There you are, being supportive of the way in which Health and Hospitals, hundreds of people showed up, by the way. It was a very long line. So I just want to say, I know what it's like to work hard. All the elected officials on the East Side know what it's like to work hard. And also the work you've done on the congestion pricing, all of that adds up to that I, Gail Brewer, as your borough president, do hereby commend Ms. Lita Camp for her contributions to the city. By the way, Isabel Abreu loves you from our office. So contributions to our city, and proclaim Wednesday, December 16, 2020, Lita Camp Appreciation Day in the borough of Manhattan. Congratulations, so deserved. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I've learned from all of you, and you are my role models. And it's my job, and it's the community board's job to speak for the people without voices, to amplify voices, to make sure that people are heard. And that's what I've tried to do, looking at all of you, all of our elected officials. I know how hard you all work on our behalves. And so I trail along in your very large footsteps. Thank you. Will, where are we? I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know with the snow outside. I don't even, it's kind of very magical, the snow. So where are we, Will?
Well, I want to give a quick recognition to your first vice chair, Gail Barron. If you're still there, I lost you.
Oh, yeah, I was going to do that in my chair report, but yes, absolutely.
Oh, no, not for that. I mean, we'll also do that too, I'm sure, but she has something she wants to share with you.
Oh, okay.
Well,
But
first, I want to thank Rita Popper and Will Brightbill for reaching out to our elected officials. And thanks to all of our state electeds for your enthusiastic willingness to honor Alita, because we know it is so well deserved. Alita, you and I have worked very closely together over the past 3 years. It's hard to believe that it's 3. I feel most qualified on both a personal and a professional level to tout your contributions to the board. You've really distinguished yourself as a steward of CB8's community. You have never flinched in the face of difficult decisions, and frankly, you never ask any board member to undertake any task that you would not be willing to tackle on your own. Your chairmanship has been characterized by innovative ideas, by strategic thinking, and your tireless efforts to increase the credibility and visibility of CB8. And receiving emails that you've written at 1 and 2 in the morning just shows how you are always working. As was said, board chairmanship is a very difficult volunteer role. You took on these duties with grace, with dedication, and with seriousness. On behalf of the entire board, we are presenting you with an engraved crystal platter from Tiffany's, which reads, "In appreciation, Alita DeKalb, Chair, CB8M, 2018 to 2020. Alita, thank you for all of your hard work and congratulations on a job very well done."
Well, if your goal was to get me to cry, I think you're probably succeeding. But again, I could not have done this without all of you. I was going to say this in my chair report. I might as well say it now, that without all of your help and all of your support and all of your engagement and involvement and concern for the community, we would not be able to represent anybody and work to improve the quality of life of our businesses and our residents and our patients. Meaning in the hospitals, everybody in the nursing home in Kohler. It has been a remarkable opportunity for me, really an adventure. And I will be forever indebted that you have trusted me, that you have allowed me this opportunity to do this work. I really am, other than all of that, and I know I was repetitive, I'm very speechless. And Gail, I will thank you in the chair report, but I am just overwhelmed and touched. And I know that the tears are not very professional, but what could I say? I had them coming in, I have them going, and it is really, when I say everyone, I mean everyone who works in the board office as well, because I'm sure Will and Max and Saida and Marat know what a job it is, and how much of a burden I've imposed on them by all of the work that I've made them do and that I've been doing. So again, it's remarkable that New York actually has this. I lived in another city that a lot of you know about, which people were just not engaged in. They were not committed to political issues, to bettering community. I mean, there were some, but it wasn't a community-wide sentiment the way it is here. And it's something I am very, very appreciative of and very grateful for. So thank you. I know we have a lot of speakers tonight on the Blood Center.
There's a couple other things before you move on from
Oh.
that. I'm sorry. There's Rebecca Seawright has joined us.
Oh,
I think she wants to say something, and I know one other person wants to say something.
thank you.
Thank you.
Member Seawright.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Will. And I know we presented a citation at last month's meeting, and I just want to echo all of my colleagues in government for your warm words. I'm a fan of Alita's, and I remember when she came and spoke at a press conference that we had on the corner of 79th Street, and we wore a mask way before COVID, before people needed to wear masks. But at that press conference, we did to make an impression that the area was not safe. And anytime that we reached out to her, she was there in a split second. We did a press conference honoring the 100th anniversary of women getting the right to vote, and she showed up within minutes. And so You're going to be deeply missed as for your leadership, and we've been proud to stand with you in your advocacy on many issues during your tenure. And so, Alita, you are a fabulous leader. And again, I just thank you for your hard work and many issues as we go forward to solve the bank problem on Roosevelt Island and continue to work to improve Kohler. And I thank you again.
Thank you. Oh, and just about Kohler, I think they have news that they'll be getting the vaccine very shortly. So that's really good news. And thank you, Assemblymember Seawright. It's been a pleasure to stand by your side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will, now, and I like how you match the tram in your color choice. Very bright, especially before Christmas.
I believe that there is one board
Will?
member who wanted to say something else to you before we move on from this. Russell.
I'm not used to this at all, so that's why I'm stuttering a bit.
So I just wanted to say, Alita, I'm going to be succeeding you, but certainly not replacing you next year. You have left really big shoes to fill. You've been a great example for me in your tireless dedication and the hard work that you have put in to the role of chair of the board, and really have been a tireless advocate on behalf of the community. I think it's evident to everybody your deep concern for the community, and that really goes across all the issues that we have. And Gail had talked about some of the issues that you've worked on, and I've certainly seen your dedication in the stuff that we've worked closely together on in contact tracing and the Marine Transfer Station and other issues. But really, it's just impossible to come up with an exhaustive list, because it's just every issue that we touch on is something that you're very focused on and very concerned in, and you've been active on. And so the other thing that I just want to flag is and mention is just how hard you've worked to ensure that our community board is being listened to, and the fact that when there are hearings, when there are meetings, Community Board 8 is there because you're there, and you're there representing us, and you're there putting our views forward and making sure that we're being heard, and that's so important. And so I know that you're not going anywhere, which I'm very glad about, that you're still going to be a very active member of the board. And I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with you and to asking your advice. And I'm thanking you in advance for that. And also just want to thank you again for all you've done and the example that you've set.
Thank you so much, Russell. That really means a lot. And I look forward to working with you too. And I know we had a lengthy conversation this morning, which I am grateful for. It's an honor to work with everyone. And I know that you will do an outstanding job. You have a gravitas that is a good thing, and an articulate manner of speaking. So I'm very, I guess that's kind of redundant. I'm very glad to have this opportunity, and that you will be succeeding me. And thank you for your very generous and gracious and kind words.
Thanks.
Thank you. Will, are we ready?
Well,
I'm not used to this, and I'm sure that there are more, I don't even know what the word is, more poised responses, but I thank everyone for bearing with me and understanding that I am not a red carpet kind of person. So thank you. Although that is fun. I must say the red carpet is fun, having done it in Hollywood. Although no one took my picture because I wasn't a star. So there you go. Will, are we ready?
Yeah, do you want to let the electeds, as they're here right now, give their reports just to get it off the road or whatever?
Yes. Let's do that. And thank you, and to all of the elected officials, thank you again. And we do want to hear from you about what's going on everywhere. So thank you. Please go ahead. Who with Borough President Brewer?
Yeah, I'll be very brief. I do want to say in terms, again, I think I said about Roosevelt Island and the testing, the Kohler, and also the banking. I believe there's some movement on that, but we will see. But thank you, Alita. The second issue, of course, is community board applications are due February 1st. You know that already. There's a hearing coming up at the City Council on composting. That's something that I know the board is interested in, Friday at 11 o'clock in the morning. The borough board is tomorrow morning, and there will be discussions about the flood resilience, a zoning text on that topic. as well as others that are mostly regarding boards 10 and 11. I just want to say this PPP continues on the PPP from Washington. We are trying to make sure that we have all the chambers of commerce and all of the individuals from, in my case, it was Columbia University Law School and Business School, helping people apply so that if it's a small business, they have a chance. I know, Alita, you've spent so much time trying to get that to happen. So we understand from the congressional reps that is going to happen, and we have to be ready. So any support along those lines, let us know. Helicopters, thank you for joining us today. I think it was a good meeting. The numbers are way up, and we learned why, which was interesting. It's not coming from downtown, it's coming from New Jersey. They are busing, whoever they is, I don't know specifically, but buses are going from the city of New York to New Jersey airports, mostly young people, I hate to say it, who want to take photographs of the city of New York from on high. And it is driving the numbers way up. So we're going to have a lot of conversations. We had a wonderful rep of the city of Hoboken, elected official. He's going to work with his other colleagues in New Jersey. They're sick of it also. But it was a good discussion with the FAA as well as Eastern Helicopter Association, all electeds, etc. And then also just want to mention the fund for the city of New York. Alvin Bonilla, who was our deputy borough president, is now at the foundation. There's a lot of money for the arts that they are allocating. I know there's other focus, but I want to make sure you know about that. And I also just want to say we are still working on the issue of devices. We got some money allocated from our allocations last year, but it's very, very slow. And devices are broken often in the homes. DOE does not know who has devices and what kind they have and what kind of internet capacity exists. So we're actually going to call every single school in the borough of Manhattan, and particularly in Board 2. Thank you very much, and I appreciate all of you.
Thank you. I know there are a lot of citywide issues. Thank you. And to me, not having a bank on Roosevelt Island is nothing short of insane. So thank you. Okay. Who's next, Will? I'm going to let you call all of the elected officials up. Thank you.
We'll go to Senator Krueger if she's still here. I think she is. If not, we'll go to Senator Serrano.
No, I made it. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I was
yes,
just
sorry.
unmuted. I apologize, Senator Serrano. I'll be very quick. Obviously, at the state level, we are still dealing with crises coming in all directions. But what we hope to do is to move back into legislative mode next week and pass some legislation that will protect us against evictions, both in residential and commercial settings, given the fact that we are in the second wave of COVID. We've closed the courts for most purposes, and it is simply not realistic to expect that we can resolve all these housing issues without extending the moratoriums, which were all set up to sunset the end of December. So the governor doesn't seem to be moving on those through executive order. So we feel very strongly in the Senate, we need to move those legislatively while we're continuing down the path of figuring out the bigger problems and the desperate need for money. Yes, we still have a revenue crisis. We are still exploring many revenue options. We also possibly could move some simple legislation before the end of the year that gives the governor the authority to move some of the bonding rights we gave to him for short-term 2-year bonds to extend that for longer-term bonds, which would give us a little more cash and a little more breathing room while waiting for the federal government to someday decide whether they were ever going to help the states before we all fall off a cliff. I held a roundtable, like a legislative hearing, the other day around problems with the last election cycle, specifically looking at how do we reform the actual structure of the Board of Elections to have transparency and accountability, and hopefully, ultimately, to get us to a model where we can have 21st century elections. I know we're all very conscious of the fact that In June, the city is going to have major elections with 35 city council seats open, borough president seats, the controller, the mayor, and I guess the public advocate is open, although there can be another term there. That there is, the people have passed ranked choice voting. There are some people who think we should delay that. I am not one of those people. There was an enormous amount of time and effort put into the discussion of whether New York City should go to ranked choice voting. The voters went to the polls and said, yes, we should. And I believe that we should stick with that commitment, since we asked the voters to vote one way or the other. But that also means we need to move quickly to make continued needed improvements in how we operate our election system. I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think there's going to have to be some education on ranked choice voting and how it works and what to do. So another thing to tackle. Thank you. Will?
Senator Serrano?
Thank you very much. I'll be brief. Just to piggyback on the remarks from Senator Krueger, yes, we are getting back into legislative session mode. And of course, we want to find the most progressive way forward to ensure that we protect our most vulnerable in our society, especially as it pertains to rent, and making sure that seniors and those without the means to do so can afford to remain in their homes as we move through this pandemic. We've been, as an office, we've been engaging in masks and sanitizer giveaways throughout the 29th Senate District, including Roosevelt Island and in East Harlem. Again, there's always a need to continue to move those types of supplies throughout the community. The COVID is peaking again, and we're so close to the vaccine. We just got to get through these next few months, and then hopefully things will start to get better. We are very happy to work with our colleagues on Roosevelt Island to deal with the issue of not having a bank, a viable bank on the island, which I think is really ridiculous when you consider it. That is something that I look forward to working with my colleagues. Rebecca Seawright, wonderful partner on all issues involving Roosevelt Island, so thank you for that. I have been doing a lot of work as chair of the Committee on Cultural Affairs to be a voice for the arts and culture throughout New York City and New York State. They are suffering disproportionately as businesses during COVID because most, if not all of them, are involve live audiences, and they involve venues, and they're not able to do anything during the pandemic. So it's going to be critically important that we try to find some ways to help our cultural institutions and organizations get to the other side of coronavirus, because we're going to rely so heavily on them to supply that economic engine, as we saw after 9/11, to bring our city back, to bring the tourists back, to help us make emotional sense of what happened. The arts and culture are going to be so critically important for us. And finally, just to mention that I've once again been selected as chair of the Majority Conference. It's a great honor to work with Andrea Stewart-Cousins and Liz Krueger and Mike Generis and the entire leadership team. Very grateful for that opportunity and very grateful to serve all of you in the state Senate. With that, I'll conclude. Thank you.
Thank you. It's interesting to hear about the arts and culture, because I think the City Council passed something to allow arts groups to perform outdoors between May and October. So maybe there are things that could be done in CB8s. We have parks, we have open space in the sense of little tiny, the plazas, the playgrounds, and maybe there's something that could be done to help everybody, both the people who need the arts to watch and get some solace and the people who perform. So thank you. Have a good trip back to Albany. I hope it's not a snowstorm. Will?
Assemblymember Dan Court, if you're ready.
Sure. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Alita. My colleagues in the state Senate have covered most of the Albany legislative agenda. So let me try and talk about the one issue that hasn't been, well, I'm sure there are more than one issue, but one issue that hasn't been discussed is the grave situation the MTA finds itself in. in our trains and bus system. And this is very specific to the east side of Manhattan, the Lexington line. Obviously, so many people whose work on this community board led to the Second Avenue subway and the Q extension, 40 blocks of it. But during the last capital plan, working with my colleagues, Assemblymember Seawright and also State Senator, we're able to get money in the MTA capital plan for track and signal work on the Lexington line, which is a significant improvement that'll affect everybody's, or virtually everybody's quality of life. Those are the things that are in danger. A different sort of subway system and bus system. Essentially the MTA has lost its best customers and through no fault of its own. We could talk at a different time about its management structure, but no business can afford to lose 65, 70% of its customers over an extended period of time. And so, yes, we need to go back to Albany to look at different ways in increasing revenue. But this is also a federal responsibility. And our great Congresswoman, of course, does everything she can, but it's really through the federal government that an obligation to, I think it's either 35 or 40% of mass transit in the entire country in many ways is here in New York City. As the system goes in New York City, so goes the rest of the region. So this is a state issue because it involves the MTA capital plan, but there can't be a solution without some partnership, some revenue, some assistance from the federal government. So that will be my focus as we return to the legislative session, beyond the very important matters that my colleagues who went before me in the state Senate spoke about. And I will stop there and pass it, I guess, to Assemblymember Seawright or back to Will to the Assembly member. Thank you.
Yeah,
Took
thank
the words
you.
right out of my mouth.
I just wanted to say we can't survive without the MTA and without a full complement of buses and trains, and especially with hospital workers, so many on the Upper East Side. So thank you, Assembly member. Will?
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. I'll be quick. I have a question. Do you still give the award at the end of the year to the staffer that's the shortest in their speech from the various offices?
I'll let Will make that determination.
That was a Nick VS special, and
Okay,
I always
now.
managed to not win it, thankfully, or else I would have lost my job.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yesterday, Governor Cuomo signed my consumer financial literacy bill requiring the New York State Department of Financial Services to provide on the department's website information on financial literacy and consumer awareness. Our economy is only as strong as the collective financial health of individual consumers. So we were pleased to get that piece of legislation signed. Yesterday, we delivered over 7,000 N95 masks to area medical facilities, and one of the local hospitals was pleased that they were administering the vaccine. I was joined by Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney and a few others as we distributed this to Mary Manning Walsh and MSK. It was exciting to witness as this first nurse received the first coronavirus vaccination in the state and in the nation. So there is hope in sight. Just echo what my colleagues, Senator Serrano and Senator Krueger and Assemblyman Quard have said. I'm looking forward to returning back to Albany and really focusing on issues that people are suffering every day in our storefront community office. We're getting calls from people that need help with their unemployment or need help with their landlord. And so we have to rise together and really work hard this next legislative session to get us out of this national pandemic. And hopefully we'll see some federal relief money coming out of Washington. But again, I ask you to all stay in touch with our office. Let us know how we can be of service to you. Please give us a call at 212-288-4607. I sit on the Education Committee. We were due to have a hearing tomorrow morning that has just been rescheduled on mayoral control of the school system. Our weekly mask giveaway for tomorrow has been canceled due to the snowstorm, but I ask you all stay safe and have a good meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And to all of the elected officials, stay safe, stay well, and continue being doing a good job as our leadership. And one of the things I've always worked on is collaboration between the elected officials and the community board, which I know is a hallmark of at the very least this board, and I believe all the boards in Manhattan, thanks to Borough President Brewer. So I hope that I see no reason, in other words, that it won't continue under Russell. So I'm very glad about that. Thank you. Will?
If I missed any elected officials here, raise your hand, and otherwise I think we can start with the public session.
Okay, great. So I'm going to call your names 3 at a time, and I would ask you to raise your hand so that Will could find you and unmute you. We have 200 people here, and it would be impossible for him to go up and down that list looking for you. So as I call your name, please raise your hand. And if I'm not calling your name, please take your hand down so that we can call on the people in the order that they've signed up. So I have, and this is teeny weeny writing, John McClement, Betty Cooper Wallerstein, and Rick Belducci. Will, can you help with that?
Give me 1 second.
Berluzzi. I mean, when I say tiny, it's like a 1/16 of an inch.
Yeah, Rick Belushi. There you go. He found him.
Good.
So just a reminder, if you're on the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand. And if you are calling in, if you're using Zoom, open up the participants menu at the bottom of your screen, click the raise hand button. And the last thing I don't know if Alita said is that you will have a 2-minute timer for.
Right. Thank you, Will. Okay, so all I see of those 3 people also is Rick. So let's start with you, Rick. Go ahead. Thank you.
You'll have to confirm unmuting at the bottom of your screen, and then the timer will start, Rick. Rick seems to have frozen. So.
Okay, then let's. Okay,
he's good.
Ready? Okay.
I hear.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi. Well, Alita, you don't know me, Alita, but I guess I, like everybody else, owe you a debt of gratitude. So thank you for all your hard work. I'm sitting, I don't know if you see me, but I am sitting where in the background is, from my window, Julia Richmond. And one of the questions I have regarding Julia Richmond is if whether or not there's a playbook we can work from somewhat, because of all the powerful forces that we were able to turn back and prevent them from Hunter College from taking over that facility. What we can do to seize on that fine work. So that's one of the items I wanted to bring up. And just to the right, can you see from my window, Julia Richmond? Or not? You can just hear me?
Yeah, it's too
Hello?
dark, I think. I don't see anything, but you're small because of the timer.
Well,
I don't want you to waste your time showing us out the window, though.
Sure.
Now we can see it.
No, the reason is that's where the tower would go. And my great fear is that it will be a refracting building, illuminating this dark background. Anyway, getting on to other points, I wanted to ask if we could also get some guidance as to reach the 51 city council members, and what would be the best approach we could take tactically to sort of establish the perception that they may have that it's the blood bank being turned down by the community, and the blood bank, all the fine work they do, to the outside world, it might be perceived as, well, yep.
Okay. Thank you, Rick. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Whoops. There you go. Thank you, Rick. Just stay tuned in terms of the blood center, and there'll be much more information to come. Okay. So do we have anyone else?
Betty Cooper Wallerstein.
Okay, go ahead, Betty.
*6 to unmute.
Yeah, okay.
*6, Betty. And if you want to
Here
call
we
the
are.
next,
There she goes.
Okay.
She's ready. Go ahead, Betty.
I'm ready. Hi, Alita.
Hi, Betty.
That was very, very lovely. All of the compliments that you got deservedly. And your parents were prescient to call you Alita because that sounds like a leader, doesn't it? That's the
No.
first thing I thought of, a leader. And so that was, you'll tell me about how that came about sometime, another time. I'm calling because I was extremely disappointed in the blood center's request, since it turned out that it wasn't really going to make a big difference to them in terms of space for their needs. But I am happy to know that the committee, the zoning committee, did vote opposed to it, a large vote. And I know that there were a couple hundred people who had called in before opposed to it. And I'm depending on our community board tonight to give a very, very strong vote opposed to it. And I join in all the thanks that you've been receiving. Well deserved. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. And it's not a requirement to speak to refer to what everyone else has said. It's okay. I know you don't have a lot of time. Thank you, Betty. Okay, let's go to the next three people then. I have Susan Peters. Oh, this is really hard for me. Deanne Cohen, and just
Paul
one.
Crickler.
Oh, I see. Okay, and him. Thank you.
So Diane Cohen and Paul Crickler, if you'll raise your hand through the participants menu, but we can get started with Susan Peters. Susan.
Hi, I'm a member of New York for Wired Tech. I'm speaking to you again with more information why community boards need to wake up to the health dangers of cell phone antennas being spread around each corner of our city. Currently, there are 8,000 antennas and there are 4,500 more planned. It is the duty of local government by law to be responsible to protect their citizens' health from this radiation. But in New York City, the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications has failed us. Last December, they issued a negative declaration for any health effects from these 12,500 antennas, ignoring tens of thousands of peer-reviewed studies to the contrary. In April of this year, they included this negative declaration in 12 agreements signed by them with companies installing the antennas and did not publish those agreements until July of this year. What is going on? Who is protecting our health? Here are some people who are. In the Netherlands, the House of Representatives of the Dutch Parliament has mandated analysis and recommends more research into 5G and its exposure causing cancer, reduced fertility, and birth defects. Number two, in October, the state of New Hampshire published recommendations to slow down this implementation in the state. One of their points was to measure levels of cell network radiation. In New York, this measurement is left to the private telecoms. The New Hampshire report referred to the FCC as a captured agency with undue industry influence. Number three, in December, this month in France, more than 70 mayors and elected officials called for a moratorium on 5G technology. The mayor's main concern are the health risks. Can I leave you with one last sentence?
A very short one. Go ahead.
A typical antenna in our public space outputs between 15,000 and 75,000 times more power than is necessary to make a 5-bar cellular connection. Please, please study this. Contact me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, our new chair is right now co-chair of the Environment and Sanitation Committee, so he has a particular interest in that, and maybe there will be some work that could be done on that. Thank you. Okay, Paul Crickler, and then Diane Cohen.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm here to ask for your help later on. I think you're discussing the covering of the surface of the bridge on Roosevelt Island to Queens. I moved here in July. I've been riding that bridge for years before that. The bridge is made of a metal surface. It's very jagged. So if you drive across that bridge, you get a huge rumble in a car. But if you ride on a bike across it, it's like you're thrown around by the surface. I even got a flat tire once because it's so sharp and jagged. So most people don't bother riding across in the bike lanes anymore. It's nice to have bike lanes, but we can't use it or use them. Most people walk on the sidewalk across the way. I think it's dangerous in the wet. I think it's something that's easily fixed. I seem to have the support of people from the offices of council members Kalos and Van Bremer, who seem to want to support the funding of what should be a cheap solution. I've been talking with some people at the DOT, also with Lynn here, I think somebody else at the DOT. So just looking for your support for this, please. It's a very simple thing we can do. And I think it would benefit lots of people, not only who live on Roosevelt Island, which is a great place to live for biking around and being safe, but lots of people like to visit here. Great cycling in Queens, great cycling on the island, but getting from one to the other is terrible. So yes, that's what I had to say.
Thank you very much. Diane Cohan.
Diane, you'll have to unmute yourself.
How's that?
Perfect.
Great.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. This is about a very specific area. It's about East 63rd Street between 2nd and 3rd. And it's regarding the parking there that has changed. There was a board meeting back on February 20th, and I believe there was parking regulation changed between 63rd, between Lexington and 3rd, where they were putting up no parking, period. However, those signs went up between 2nd and 3rd, which has always had parking on at least one side of the street from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Now that has been taken away on that section of 63rd Street completely. I'm not talking about during the daytime. I am not talking about the bridge traffic coming off, because after 7 p.m. it's limited. I've lived here 38 years and I'm very well aware of the traffic patterns. I'm also not talking about the biking lanes on 62nd. I am talking and addressing only the parking between 2nd and 3rd on 63rd. I believe that the no parking anytime signs were put up in error. I would like to have those removed. And go back to the signs that say no parking between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. There's no rush of traffic at that time. We are also in a pandemic. Remember, this went out on February 20th, 2020. It is now, 10 months? And it has been a hardship. Believe me, I've parked in the garages and the rats came and ate out my tubing there in the motor, and I was stranded. We are having a problem on the parking. The bikes have been gone up right off of 3rd Avenue, and the school has there. So that we've lost most of the parking on East 63rd Street. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a question for the Transportation Committee. So please send your information to Will and I'll talk to the Transportation Committee. Okay, so next we are asking for Andrew Ravaschieri. Oh, this will be the last time, Andrew. Barbara Krieger and Martin Bell.
Alita, thank you so much. And thank you for being such a good leader and making me feel welcome whenever I speak. I really appreciate it. You know me, but for those on this meeting who don't know me, my name is Andrew Ravaschier and I am a resident of CB8. I have been my entire life, and I am a cellular researcher who has been published twice in periodical peer-reviewed journals, whose work focuses on how climate change impacts us on a cellular molecular level. And so I know many people are going to speak tonight about the blood center in terms of height for aesthetic values, but I'm calling for a 210-foot height cap on all new development due to cellular and scientific reasons. The main issue I want to focus on is the urban heat island effect, which NASA and the EPA describes as the warming of urban temperatures due to the interaction of tall buildings with one another. And while it may just sound inconvenient that temperatures are getting warmer, it has a profound physical and mental harmful effect on us. It worsens our respiratory and circulatory health because when the temperature gets hotter on the ground, particulate matter gets trapped on the ground. There are many antipsychotic medications that actually hamper with people's abilities to regulate temperature. So the warming of temperatures from the urban heat island have a detrimental effect in that regard. And ironically, during the summer, when the heat doesn't get to escape the area, many people put on their air conditioners, which only exacerbates the greenhouse gas effect, which contributes to climate change, which again makes the temperature warmer. So I'm advocating for a 210-foot height cap so that residents have the protections they need in terms of their health, and so that developers don't have to go through this system where they aren't sure of the specifications of the lot that they're buying. So to just have a clear rule, a 210-foot height cap for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, let's go to Marty Bell.
Right,
Will,
Marty.
can I screen share?
No.
Oh,
Go ahead and get going, though.
I'm sorry?
You've got to start. And I'm sorry about the screen share, but you've got to start talking now because the timer's going.
Okay.
Thank
I'm
you.
here to oppose the tower on the blood bank site. I think it's simply outrageous. I think the three essential elements need to be addressed. One is the size, the height and mass of the building. The other is the number of people. And the third is the location, mid-block between what are probably the two busiest side streets on the Upper East Side. And also it's being across the street from the school and from the park. The Blood Center lied to us in their presentation. They said this building was for them and their partners. It's not. It's a commercial tower and it's a real estate deal with a Boston developer. They also lied to us about the volume and height of the building, comparing it only to large buildings along the avenues rather than mid-block buildings. But if you look at what is the smallest building identified by the Blood Center, the building across the street from Julia Richmond, that is a 32-story apartment building, and yet it's 30 feet shorter than what they're proposing to build on the site of the Blood Tower. But that building has plaza area and setbacks. So actually, it's like putting three of those buildings on the site of the Blood Tower. And that will just create huge shadows all day, continuously over the school and all afternoon during the summer over the park. Also, the location is between what's probably the two busiest side streets on the Upper East Side. East 67th Street is the only side street in the city that has a major educational complex with school buses all day, plus a city bus, the M66. This proposal is outrageous, and I look forward to the full community board opposing it.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Monette Moradi, Jenny Leclerc. I'm terrible at names. It hasn't gotten any better. And Alan Drusen. If the three of you could raise your hands, please. Thank you. I don't see any of their hands yet. Maybe they're just looking for them.
Janine, there she is.
Okay, let's start with her, and maybe the other guys are still here looking. Okay, Janine.
Hi, I'm pretty much want to just to agree with what Marty said. We're neighbors in the same building, and I firmly back everything he said. But I just want to add one other thing to it that I think is really important for people to have addressed, that if this building, the Blood Center, and these developers want to put this building up, and they will disregard how it's going to affect Julia Richmond High School and the park, and just that alone, never mind the rest of the buildings. But most of the children that go to that school are brown and black children. And I think that this is the worst time and the worst climate for anybody to be disregarding that community of children, to take advantage of hurting the way that building is affected. And that's pretty much all I want to say. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Will, do you see Monette or Alan? If not, let's move on to the next three. Let's have Floyd Kaminsky, or maybe Floyd Kaminsky, Patricia Relier, and Shannon Burkowski.
And a reminder, just raise your hand through the participants menu at the bottom of your screen, or
Not
*9 if you're calling in from the phone.
Right, not your real hand. We'll never see it with 200 people, almost 200. Shannon, Will, if you unmute her, thank you.
Hi, my name is Shannon Burkowski. I am the co-president of the PTA at PS 183. I'm also a resident of 67th Street, just a few doors down from the blood bank. My two main concerns with this proposal are the impact on our kids and my kids, and the congestion that it will cause. Especially during this pandemic, we've realized how important outdoor space is. And living in New York City apartments, when we've been confined to our apartments for most of the time, getting outside is really important. And we have basically lived in St. Catherine's Park since March. So we're there almost every day. And the idea that it would take away a lot of sunlight from these only times that the kids get to play outside is really concerning for me. I also live on this block and I see the buses that go to the Julia Richmond complex every day. I can't imagine what the impact construction would have on the kids who go to Ella Baker and the other high school kids in that building. I'd be worried about the parking since we live here and what that would be like. And I think that though it's, the blood bank building does need to be modernized, and it's great for STEM education and for creating new jobs. But I think that the blood bank proposal as it is sort of self-serving, and they're doing what's best for them and not really considering the impact that it will have on this community. And this block and its surroundings in particular. And so I really oppose the proposal as it is. It needs to be amended. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's go to Floyd Kaminsky and then Monette Moradi, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Floyd, you'll just need to confirm unmuting on your screen. There you go.
Okay, great. My name's Floyd Kaminsky. I've been a resident at 315 for nearly 40 years, raised two children in that neighborhood. I'm grateful to my neighbor, Marty Bell, for giving such a succinct rebuttal to the developer's presentation last week. And, I would just say that there is a real reason that the mid-block streets were zoned smaller scale than the avenues, and that is to create livability within the city. Ours is a neighborhood, and we have a public library, we have little children coming and going from the Julia Richmond Education Complex, we have a delightful park where many people, old and young, and the hospital workers come to congregate and be outside for light and air. And it's an essential quality of urban living that we preserve our neighborhoods. Shout out to Liz Rose, who helped push back on the Hunter College proposal to replace the school with a high-rise science tower. The developers are finding these mid-block locations to be ripe for redevelopment, and they should not be permitted to do this for strictly commercial reasons. That's all I have to say. Please deny them the ability to build this huge building mid-block.
Thank you. And I'm sorry for having referred to you as Floyd. I thought it was a typo. Thank you. Monette, and then Barbara Krieger is here as well after her. Will, thanks.
Thank you. As a grad student currently in the Master's in Public Administration and as a resident of the Upper East Side, it's my responsibility to therefore oppose the New York Blood Center development. For the past 2 years, I have been researching how the de Blasio administration has been implementing neoliberal policy measures on issues that ultimately are a power grab for the mayor's office only. A lack of collaborative strategies, communication, as seen here, is just another one of the insidious tactics. By allowing this development to pass, the people who are not opposed are complicit in this egregious government trend. This is not a case of bad neighbors, but bad actors undermining the rights we have as residents of the municipality. In conclusion, despite my view about the effectiveness of government and community engagement, I'm always willing to be proven wrong. Prove me wrong and oppose this measure. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Barbara?
Unmute. Hello, I am talking about 72nd Street between York and the river. It has become a parking lot. The cars park, triple park, double park. There's no parking signs. The police come, they chase them away, they come back again. We can't get down the street. If an emergency vehicle wanted to come, it couldn't get to the end of the street. This is a dead-end street. It is a cul-de-sac at the end, and emergency vehicles have to pass through a gauntlet of cars in order to get to the end. There must be a way that we can stop so many parkers.
Thank you. That's again a matter for the Transportation Committee. Send your information, please, to the board office, and I'll talk to the chairs of the Transportation Committee. Thank you. Okay, next we have, oops, I stopped my video by mistake. I'm just looking to be able to read this list. Next we have Karen Mazur, Dr. Ellen Bark, and Annette Sarah Cunningham. Are you here? Could you raise your hands? I see.
One of those is probably the woman who's named 333 East 66th Street.
Yes.
Just identify yourself, please.
Yes.
Identify yourself, please.
We need your
Ellenberg.
name.
Dr.
Sorry.
Ellenberg. Okay.
Okay.
Go
Oh,
ahead and
is it
start.
me?
Yeah.
Oh, fine. I represent 333 66th Street, president of the co-op. And I want to bring up an issue that perhaps has not been stressed in terms of the blood center, larger building than we have obviously at the moment. We are on the back side of the building on 66th Street with their loading dock. It is almost impossible to think what a loading dock will be once they have the size of building that they're putting up, or they would like to put up. That brings another issue. With this many partners in the life sciences, the amount of waste, dangerous waste, is a difficult problem for people who are walking on the street. We have trucks delivering nitrogen, which is potentially very dangerous. Mothers with young children often cross the street. They don't want to be anywhere near the truck, which smoke is coming out of, steam is coming out of. We have a whole series of smells and unpleasant experiences with this smaller blood center. We can only imagine what it would be when the building is so much larger. We think that there are ways potentially to have an appropriate blood center, and we would certainly endorse that, but certainly not one that creates as much potential danger for the increased number of people and children from the schools, from the nursery schools around the corner, who would be potentially walking on our block and on several other blocks in the local area. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see Karen Mazur or Annette Sarah Cunningham, so let's try Thomas Suss, Paul Graziano, and Nichelle Dean. Are any of you here?
Paul Graziano.
Okay, let's start with Paul then.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. My name is Paul Graziano. I'm the zoning, planning, and land use consultant for 301 East 66th Street, which is immediately west of the blood center. I already spoke at the zoning committee meeting last week, and I submitted my testimony, which I assume was distributed to the rest of the community board. If it hasn't, I hope it will be, and it has been read for this evening. I would also ask, I submitted some renderings to the community board, and I would hope, since I was unable to show them tonight on the screen, I hope you can make them available on your CB8 website or a link to them. Just a very brief statement. 301 East 66th is against this. I believe other representatives will state that they are opposed. I put down in favor, but I believe it's in favor of the motion, which is to oppose the blood center from the zoning committee. So I just wanted to clarify that. The last thing I'll say very briefly is that having looked at the building now from multiple angles and seen how really enormous this building will be. I've been doing this for several decades, and I don't think I've ever come across a proposal that has been, and I'll just say it, has been as abusive in its presentation to a community, to an existing community, than this particular proposal. To propose something that's more than 4 times the size of an allowable zone. As I said, typically when you look at these kinds of things from other citywide proposals or other neighborhood proposals, an applicant might ask for twice the size, maybe 2.5 times the size, but to have something over 4 times the size with the lack of setbacks, et cetera, I asked the community board to, as much as possible, unanimously oppose this building tonight at your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Will, I see that we have, I'm sure you do too, Ms. Dean and Thomas Sauce. So let's start with Ms. Dean first.
We just need to, there you go.
Good evening. My name is Nichelle Dean, and I'm a parent of a student of the Julia Richmond Educational Complex. I'm also the sibling of a former student of JREC at the Urban Academy who is now an educator in the building. I'm opposed to the Blood Center and the rezoning and whatever it is that's going to take place in that community. There are numerous hazardous conditions, many impediments to the safety of children, educators, and residents of that community. And I feel it's egregious and irresponsible for not only the children of that community, the children that attend and participate in education and recreational activities in that area, including the overshadowing of the park, the hazardous condition that's posed for my father that receives medical treatment through the Sloan Kettering Medical Center right down the block from where my daughter goes to school. Please pardon me for becoming emotional, but I have many ties through many biological residents that will be affected by what happens in that community. And I would also like to mention that I work on behalf of intellectually and developmentally disabled children and adults. There's a District 75 school in that building. There's 6 separate demographics of children that are serviced by the JREC building, which will be directly impacted if all of these things that are being proposed actually happen. I implore whomever it is that has any impact and any say to fervently oppose these changes, because it directly impacts, not only affects the health, well-being, and safety of not only the children across from small to young adults, but as well as our elders and the residents of that community at large. Thank you for allowing me to share this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. I know that it was difficult for you to speak, so thank you for coming and talking to us. Okay, let's go to Thomas. And and then I'll ask a question after that. Okay, Thomas, thank you. Will.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I've been at Weill Cornell for over 50 years, and I'm now a professor at the medical college. I'm speaking because I recognize the need for the New York Blood Center, and they serve a great function. However, they don't need to build the Pentagon in the midst of a school and a park and a children's playground and busy city streets with the traffic that's already been described. I really believe that a modification of their plan that would scale it down to human terms and not destroy the neighborhood is totally appropriate and in keeping with their humanitarian goals. And maybe they can table some of their goals as landlords and profiteers. That's really all I wanted to say. The neighborhood needs to stay the way it is. And the neighborhood fought a very good battle to preserve the school. And now we need to preserve the neighborhood around the school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we've heard from a number of people who oppose the Blood Center plan to expand. I'd like to ask everyone, and I'm going to trust you here, that if you've signed up to speak and you are in favor of the blood center plan, could you raise your hand right now? I normally like to alternate. As I mentioned, I don't know anyone's positions right now, but I'd like to ask if there's anyone in favor of it, and you have signed up to speak by 6:45, if you could raise your hand. I don't see anybody. Will, do you?
No.
Okay, then I'm going to assume that everyone else on this list, and let's just deal with the blood center first, and then we'll go back to people who might be here in not on the blood center. I know there's at least one of you. Okay, let's hear from a couple of other blood center people or a few others if you have something different to say. So Will, could you give us a count of all of the people who have spoken up? I mean, who have signed up to speak, because they all seem to be, I know it's hard to tell, but opposed to the blood center expansion. So do we know how many there are who have said they are?
Because there are repeats, looks like there's another 10 to 12.
Okay. I think we have a long meeting this evening, and it's 7:45. So if you are here for the blood center and you have something that's different or new to say, would you raise your hand? Okay. I know, and I see Rachel Levy on the list too. So Rachel, you're included in that group. So let's start with, I don't know, the people who raised their hand and took them away. Let's have Anthony Barrett and then Rachel and Christine Olson.
Hi, good evening. I'm a board member at 301 East 66th Street, and we are strongly in opposition to this project. A couple of new issues that arise. First of all, I want to thank the CB8 zoning board that raised questions yesterday at the meeting. They were thorough and included some other items that we had not yet discussed. So they did a really good job on that. Yesterday at the CPC Zoning Commission meeting, we raised certain issues. And then this morning, I went back and looked at the EIS statement that was on their website, and I noticed that various documents have been uploaded that were not there prior. Two points that I want to bring up. One is the traffic study and one is the noise study. Basically on their traffic study, according to their report, they use numbers for 2020, obviously with COVID and things, our traffic is a little bit less than it's been in 2019. And in 2019, we just had the bike lanes installed on 2nd Avenue. So to get really representative numbers is going to be difficult. But they actually said that the numbers they saw and their projected numbers do not warrant a more detailed traffic study. With regards to noise, they discussed, they raised MSK's EIS statement from 2001 that had noise receptors on York Avenue and 1st Avenue. They used data from those with that 2001 data. And again, they said that based on those numbers, and they would adjust it for the new traffic study, new traffic volumes, and again said that it would not be an issue. So this is again showing how deceptive this application is, and you really have to stay on top of what's going on. Those are my only two new points. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Will, would you unmute Rachel?
Hi, thanks. Thanks, Alita, and hi, everyone. Rachel Levy, I'm the Executive Director of Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts. I'll just add a couple of points that I think I can add to the conversation. Obviously, this would dismantle a key facet of the Upper East Side's land use infrastructure, the R8B contextual district. This would be the first rezoning of an R8B district in 35 years since it was mapped. The blood center's materials make no mention of the likely potential for this to encourage other R8B rezonings or what the cumulative impact of those would be. But I think we all know that this would just be the first of many. The project is also just so massive. I want to make a couple of points of comparison. The floor plate is over 30,000 square feet. So this puts it much more in context with buildings like the Freedom Tower, 10 Hudson Yards, and one Vanderbilt than any other building that's ever been built on the Upper East Side. the new shadows that this would cause on St. Catherine's Park are substantial during the afternoons in much of the year. But I just want to add that shadows don't only fall on parks, they also fall on streets and sidewalks. And the studies that we've done show that 67th Street would lose more than 50% of its light, as would portions of 66th Street. And really the only possible mitigation for this type of loss is a smaller building. Finally, they make no mention of other alternatives. The as of right alternative would provide more than enough space for the blood center's operations. The city has also identified through its LifeSci NYC initiative in 2018, 3 other sites that are city owned, including one in East Harlem that would have the proper zoning and work perfectly for the blood center's program. This is a really overly aggressive proposal that would start to undo years of carefully calibrated zoning for the Upper East Side. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, Will, would you unmute Christine Olson, please?
Hi, oh, should I start?
Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Christine Olson. I'm the principal co-director of the Urban Academy Laboratory High School. I'm here to speak on behalf of my school community and the other principals and schools that are located in the Julia Richmond Education Complex. As has already been mentioned, the JREC complex is not in support of the New York Blood Center expansion project. As people here are aware, the JREC campus serves 2,000 students from pre-K to grade 12. It includes a life program for the children of young parents. It includes 4 high schools. It includes a K-8 elementary school and a middle school for children with autism. These students come from neighborhoods far beyond the Upper East Side, so this development impacts communities far beyond just this neighborhood. We've been down this road with the New York Blood Center before. They clearly did not learn from their defeat by our neighbors and supported when they attempted to take over our building in 2016. One sec. At the time, they misled our elected officials by claiming we supported the project when we did not. 4 years later, they're now spreading misinformation about a commercial construction project of a scale and impact that would harm the Julia Richmond Educational Complex just as surely as those 2016 demolition crews. A lot of our concerns about this project have already been raised. We're concerned about the increased congestion of traffic. It's already dangerous for the children to get off the school buses, and this is only going to bring more traffic onto the street. We're concerned just about the increase of the sheer number of people. If the blood center goes from about 230 people a day to 2,600 people a day, we're just concerned about the number of people that'll be coming daily onto a block that serves so many young students and students of all ages. We're also very concerned about the sunlight, both in our school as well as in the park where our children and the neighborhood children play. The 2 points that we just want to make that I think haven't necessarily been made as succinctly is just the nature of the block. And right now it's a predominantly public block, and this would change the nature of the block. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Will, would you unmute Joshua, please? Joshua Satin.
Hello, my name is Joshua Satin. I am the principal of the Ella Baker School within the Julia Richmond building. And I just want to reiterate what Christine has said, Marty has said, Miss Dean has said, Shannon has said, and everybody else who seems to be at this meeting today, that the building proposal by the blood bank is just not something the community wants nor needs. Again, this was something we talked about 5 years ago. They had a plan to come and demolish the Julia Richmond building and build something on their site for us, something smaller. And then they would want to take over the Julia Richmond building. Again, we said no when they came in our doors. We said no when they left. And here we are 4 years, 5 years later, again saying no. So the Julia Richmond building, the students, the families, the community are all in opposition of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Will, would you unmute Micheline? And would you please identify yourself with your first name and your last name, please?
My name is Micheline Laka. I live at 324 East 66th Street. I'm directly across the street from the blood center. And I've been here for 40 years plus. And right now I have some light because the blood center is low, but once this construction will be across, it will face me, I will completely lose all my light. I will be living in darkness as a result. And I'm sure I speak for all the residents that are surrounding this area on 66 and 67th Street. So I strongly oppose this project, and I pray that it doesn't work. And also changing the zoning laws will set a precedent for other developers, and it will have a negative impact not only on our community but on the entire city, all these neighborhoods. So I hope that you will oppose this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Will, would you unmute Ruth Brodsky? And then Wendy McCaver.
Ruth, you just need to confirm unmuting at the bottom of your screen.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I do not, I'm at 315 East 68th Street, and I strongly opposed to this tower. I think it's a charade for a real estate deal, and I agree with Marty, Floyd, Michelle, and Thomas, so I won't repeat that. I just want to caution or alert the community board that when they do hear people, proponents for this tower, to understand where they're coming from. The other night, I heard people from a construction company, from a sheet worker company, and they are in favor of this. Of course, they're in favor of this. It supplies new jobs, supplies opportunities for more workers, both of which we don't need in this neighborhood. So just when you hear them, be alert to why they're in favor of this. It's not for the blood bank. That blood bank could be anywhere. These people could approve it no matter where it is. It doesn't have to be on East 67th Street. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Will, would you unmute Wendy? And then after Wendy, we'll have Julie Blinbaum Markovici.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Alita, I want to thank you so much for your dedication and fostering a responsive and lively forum for our community. And we're really going to miss you in your leadership role, and I'm glad that you're staying involved. It sort of leads me into recognizing that we've lived through some very contentious times politically. And although I don't think that's going away entirely, I'm hoping that there will be a time where we are working with each other, and that includes working with developers. The 10th Amendment of our Constitution, we should always be reminded, gives local authorities the power to regulate real estate and zoning. And that's what we try to do. And the role of a community board is essential in gathering public opinion and looking at what is healthy and workable. I wanted to also add that energy use, I know people are talking about shadows, but it must be noted that energy use rises as building height rises. Peer-reviewed studies show that climate change pollution such as carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, methane, nitrous oxides, ozone, mercury, and lead rise as building height rises. There's an exponential increase in energy use and thus in climate change pollution emissions in buildings. I've spoken about this often in buildings with a height above 210 feet, but in the same study about building height and greenhouse gas emissions in New York City, they talk about the other exponential rises at the 10th floor. So those molecules of all of the pollutants that I mentioned, they haven't learned to be well behaved and stay over 67th Street. I don't live at 67th Street or 68th. I live in the 80s. But you know, all of that air pollution does not know to mind its manners and just stay where it came out. I also wanted to add to Andrew Ravisher's point about the urban heat island effect. It's not being measured or included in building emission metrics. Air quality is also not being measured, and none of these metrics are being required in an EAS or an EIS. And it must be noted also that Black communities bear a greater burden of these effects of climate change emissions and the increased urban heat island effect. I hope all of this will be taken into account. And I also wanted to thank Elizabeth Ashby and Elaine Walsh for also leading the way in looking for appropriate 210 height caps and other zoning regulations. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Wendy. Is Julie here? Julie Blinbaum Markovici? Okay, then let's go.
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Yes,
why don't
sorry.
you go now, Julie?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to the Small Business Committee. As most people on this call, I know that we are absolutely devastated by the number of empty storefronts and the closure of businesses that have been in our neighborhood for decades now. I'm a born and raised Upper East Sider, and I will tell you that I was wondering, am I not contributing in small part to that? I mean, especially in the pandemic, my credit card bill reads Amazon, Amazon, Amazon. And I started up an initiative 5 weeks ago to change that and to really garner support within our community to get people to take a break from Amazon for this holiday season and help our struggling local small businesses as we purchase our holiday gifts and as we go forward through the pandemic. We've created a couple phenomenal resources that I wanted to introduce to this group and to the elected officials here and represented. The first is our website, www.shopues.com. It's a phenomenal resource through which our members of our community can find small businesses to shop. It's broken down by category with phone numbers, websites, etc., links to shop, and great ideas. The second thing that we've done is create an Instagram and Facebook account, which has tons of inspiration, ideas for gifts under $25, etc., inspiration for shopping as well. But the second purpose that we have is to educate people, to let them know how much our small businesses have done to create COVID-friendly shopping opportunities, whether it's by shopping by phone, text, FaceTime, virtual appointments, curbside pickup, delivery. There's so much out there that the stores have done, and we have an obligation as a community to do what we can to support them. So I ask for all of your help as we spread the word in this. Visit our website. Again, it's www.shopues.com. Join us as an official or unofficial ambassador, but help us spread the word in our community because our small businesses need our help, and there are COVID-friendly and safe ways to shop them, especially in a lockdown. I just want to encourage you take a look at the website because you will find links there because 90% of these stores you can actually shop online. You don't have to go into them. And if the stores are shut down, you can still shop them online. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Julie. We're happy to work with you, and we're glad to have someone as enthusiastic as you are helping to promote small business. They help make the Upper East Side what it is. Thank you. And your website is a good one. I remember from the Small Business Committee. Thank you. Okay, I think there are a couple. There were, I think, Nancy Reynoso. Will, would you unmute her? Thank you.
There you go.
Nancy, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. I'm calling. I'm here with your representation of the JREC community. I am a parent of the third child in the Julie Richmond Complex, Urban Academy, and I'm very familiar with the neighborhood, and I know all the great stuff the school has done, and I respect the community a lot and love the space that you guys, the block has with that beautiful park. And one of my concerns is how this blood bank is for their profits, because I heard that they're going to have a lot of commercial space in this building, or that adjacent, whatever they're adding onto it will bring. They're just forgetting about this, how it will just completely block lighting to such an important part of the community, for the school, for the children, and everybody else who uses it around. Besides that, we already have enough traffic as it is. We have a major crosstown bus on 67th Street. And I'm concerned if it's going to bring up more floors, it's definitely going to bring in more foot traffic, more people going to work there, and it's going to be more congested. So that's my concern. I really hope that they can think about this and they can actually go build another building somewhere else and leave 67 the way it's looking so great. And I think we already have enough health institutions in the neighborhood, and they should just consider it for the benefit of the community and the kids. I appreciate you guys letting me talk tonight.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, I asked before if anyone was in favor of the blood center, and no one had raised their hand, so that the board can see, because I know how many people signed up to speak, and I really appreciate your complying with my request to raise your hands if you had something new and different, and you did. So for the benefit of everyone else, would everyone here who is opposed to the blood center, just please raise your virtual hand on the bottom of the participant screen so we can see how many of you there are.
If you want something that's a little bit more exact, if you click the yes or no button, so if you click the no button, because you're against the proposal, it'll actually give us a count.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yeah. So
You know,
don't
you're-
raise your hand. Click the no button at the
Yeah,
bottom of your
click-
participant screen.
Yeah. You're a whiz at this, Will. Thank you.
We'll give it a couple more seconds.
There were a lot of hands up, but I don't see a lot of the no buttons, so I'm
Yeah,
not
there's
really
57,
sure.
58.
Oh, okay. Okay. I see they're scattered around. It doesn't push them to the top. Okay.
At the bottom of my screen. Sorry, maybe not everyone else sees this, and I apologize if you do not. I'll be able to tell you exactly how many no's and yeses there are.
Thank you.
There's 1 yes, 2 yeses, 66 no's, and 1 go faster. So
I'm trying to go faster. Okay. I see the yes, at least 1 yes is a board member, so you'll have a chance to speak. Okay. So I think we're done with the public speaking portion of this. Then I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a motion? Rebecca raised her hand a second. You can use the reactions button for the second if you'd like.
Wait.
Or Rita, you seconded it. Okay, then the agenda will be adopted. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Okay, a motion to approve the minutes?
Barry, is that what you're doing?
Seconded.
Move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Barry. Any objections to the minutes? Okay, then the minutes are approved. Okay, we've heard from Borough President Gail Brewer. We've heard from a lot of the elected officials and that they were here. I can't say how much that means to me. I'm beyond touched. I just speechless. And that's not easy for me. Are there any other elected officials, reps here? Will, do you see anybody
I saw
else?
someone from, there you go. I saw Jenna from the council.
Okay, so would you unmute? There you go. Hi, Jenna.
So, hi, everyone. I'm Jenna Klaus from Councilmember Keith Power's office. Hope everybody's well. Since 2018, Councilmember Powers has had concerns about the development at 249 East 62nd Street and its proposed massive unenclosed void. The original proposal was taking advantage of a loophole the City Council voted overwhelmingly to close last year. Now the original plan has been phased out and a new design is expected in the coming months. Councilmember Powers has been working with his colleagues on this issue since he took office and is grateful to neighbors who voiced concerns. He's looking forward to reviewing a new proposal for the site. Also this month, the council member introduced Intro 2180. This bill aims to make the noise complaint process a more transparent one and will bring DEP inspections in line with those of other city agencies required to publicly post the results of their responses to complaints. And then we're also currently doing coat and toy drives through December 31st. You can donate to a New Yorker in need of a warm coat or a gift for the holiday season through our office's dedicated virtual drives in partnership with New York Cares and Room to Grow with a virtual wish list. And then on a personal note, I wanted to let you all know this will be my last full board meeting as a representative of Councilmember Keith Powers. It's been a great time being a liaison to CB8. I've learned so much about the Upper East Side and our city as a whole. Just want to thank Will and Alita for being such great partners. And thank you to all of the board members that I've gotten to know over the past 3 years.
Well, speaking for myself, Jenna, I know I'll really miss you. So I wish you good luck. Do you want to share what you'll be doing?
I am going to be managing a council campaign in the Bronx.
That's exciting. Good luck. Good luck. I grew up in the Bronx, and I have a
Jenna.
special partial to that. So good luck. And thank you for telling us, and have a great holiday season. We will miss you. Will, I see Michael Stinson is here from Comptroller Scott Stringer's office. Hi, Mike. While Will's unmuting you, thank you. Go ahead, Michael.
Hi, Lita. Thank you. And Elaine, I see you're going faster sign, so I will go as fast as possible to speed this up for everybody on here. Just 2 quick things from our office this month. So the Comptroller proposed a plan to support and promote small businesses during the upcoming holiday season as COVID-19 cases continue to surge. As New York City's economy slowly recovers and tourism, a significant source of revenue for small businesses, continues to lag, Comptroller Stringer urged the city to launch a coordinated effort to help small businesses navigate the challenges posed by this holiday season and make it as easy as possible for New Yorkers to shop local and support community retail. Comptroller Stringer's recommendations include assisting small businesses with digital tools and developing an online presence, ramping up holiday markets and outdoor festivals where New Yorkers can shop outdoors, pedestrianizing neighborhoods, keeping business corridors accessible, easing regulations and prohibitive fees on awnings, and using Link NYC terminals to promote nearby businesses. I'll drop that in the link. And also one other thing, we released our annual Making the Grade New York City Agency Report Card on MWBE's report, finding that MWBs continue to face structural inequities and barriers to opportunities as 80% of city agency grades measuring MWB spending and transparency either remains stagnant or declined since last year. Comptroller announced that the city earned its second C grade after 4 consecutive years of D+ grades. This year's report analyzed the acute impact of COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent economic shutdown of New York City's MWB community. After 85% of MWBs reported in a July 2020 survey that they could not survive the next 6 months. And finally, Alita, I don't know how much time I have left, hopefully like 20 seconds.
You're fine.
Thank you. I'm sorry Scott couldn't be on here tonight, but we really appreciate that whenever we would call on CB8 to come represented at a press conference, you were there. And that's more than I could have ever asked of you. And that it really speaks to not only your community board, but just your personality and always wanting to be there for your community board. And this community board, especially compared to some other community boards in the city, you guys really make this one of the best community boards. And I've worked in 3 boroughs now. This is one of the best ones I've ever worked with. So I just want to thank you, and you represent your board very well. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Michael. It's not me, it's them. Thank you. Okay, I know that there was someone, I know the big complaint is always how long these meetings go, but I want to be fair. So there was someone who had signed up to speak. I don't know if he heard. I'm going to ask Nicholas Deviatkin, if you have something different, if you've heard what the other speakers, are you here on the Blood Center? Could you just raise your hand so I could ask you directly, please, quickly?
I am not here on the Blood Center.
Okay, then go ahead, because I didn't see that. So go ahead. Sorry about that.
I appreciate you coming back to me. I'll be brief. What I wanted to speak about is an issue that was raised by a number of other speakers, the current economic conditions facing New York City, and what I think Community Board 8 can do about it. As we all know, New York City's facing a very desperate situation. Restaurants, small businesses, city services like the MTA, park, sanitation, everyone's feeling the crunch, and especially working class people in the city. Bottom line is the outlook is very, very bad. From our elected officials, we've heard for 9 months that it's up to the federal government to fix this. And I just want to say, and I think a lot of people would agree with me, that that's just simply not good enough. And it's kind of passing the buck. We need our state, which has the 12th largest GDP in the world, to do something immediately. There are a lot of revenue generating measures that are being floated out there by a lot of different people. And considering this, I would call on Community Board 8 to hold town hall style meetings. One of the great things about the Community Board is that thankfully our elected officials do come and speak to us like they did today. But unfortunately, they speak to us. They're not answering direct questions, and they're not giving detailed presentations. And I think that it's appropriate, considering the crisis that we're facing, to have a town hall style meeting where our state representatives come and answer specific questions about their plans to bring revenue and stimulus to New York City businesses and workers. I think that this should happen in the next month or so, in the beginning of the next legislative session. And I'm not sure if any specific committee could take the lead on that, or if this could be a full board effort. I'm happy to help in any way possible. Thank you for getting back to me.
Thank you. I know you emailed me, and it's something we're tossing around in the Small Business Committee. So, so we'll see. Thank you. And there's one other elected official representative from the Public Advocate's Office, Will.
Hey, I will not be long, but I wanted to make one quick announcement. Good evening, Community Board
Hi,
8, and I
Philip.
hope
Thank you.
hi, Lita, and I hope you're well, warm, and happy Hanukkah and holidays to everyone.
Thank you.
Most importantly, I get really excited about this announcement because it's one of the tangible ways that government, big data, right? Data and technology has been used from the Public Advocate's Office with different partners and advocates across the city to really hold account, put information out there, and see some immediate change for the residents of New York City. Yesterday, the Public Advocate and the Housing Equity team announced an annual worst landlords watch list, which catalogs 100 of the most egregiously negligent landlords in New York City, as determined by widespread, repeated, and unaddressed violations in buildings on the list. This year, the buildings were owned by the worst landlords were overwhelmingly in Black and brown neighborhoods hardest hit by COVID-19 pandemic. And just, the Public Advocate's Worst Landlord List is an information sharing tool intended to allow tenants, public officials, advocates, and other concerned individuals to identify which residential property owners consistently flout the city laws intended to protect the rights and safety of residents. This is the second list from Public Advocate Williams, and this project started years ago. But I will just say, our first list, when we did this and we did a tour, the Public Advocate did a tour of certain buildings, and brought on NYCHA residents on the news. The next day they were getting fixes, right? And so that's like the power of that, and it's a really big deal. So I will share it on here and send it to Will tomorrow to share with all the community boards so you can interact with the data and see what's going on and who's working with it and who's pushing after this. And lastly, to close out, just want to say my first Manhattan Borough Board meeting, where that's everyone, all the leaders of the community boards at a meeting, the immediate notice, and I might have said this to Alita at that meeting, is that Alita made the plea to the other leaders of this throughout Manhattan in that borough board meeting, asking for help, asking for ideas, willing to share information, because it was urgent for her to represent and find ways to provide solutions or push back against the forces that happen in the city. So I started my first meeting at CB8, praising Alita for that, and I will close that. Thanks for your dedication to your community in the city, Alita. You have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you, Philip. You too. And I remember that borough board meeting. And thank you for the compliment and coming up to me. Happy holidays. Okay, I think so. We're done with the elected officials and the public speaking. So I just want to say quickly that tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock, CB8 is putting on a memorial program for those we've lost to COVID-19, whether they lived in CB8 or whether they leave behind a family member or a friend or business who's connected to CB8. So that's at 4 o'clock. We have a number of churches, synagogues, Muslim center, imam, who are going to participate in this. We'll begin with them. They are each going to say a prayer or give a statement, then have some members of the public and some CB8 members, and then elected officials, and then read names. If you have names of anyone that you've lost or would like us to remember that you would like read at the memorial program, please email me at campcb8m.com. That's campcb8m.com. I'm working with Rebecca Dangor on this, and we urge any CB8 members who would like to contribute to please join us, and you'll be able to say what you would like to say in remembrance. It just seems that this is a good opportunity to pause and reflect while the holidays are approaching. Possibly next Tuesday, I'm not sure. I've been working with CB10 on a program on the economic impact of changing market conditions in housing. Beyond housing, it's possible health impact, education impact. So we're working on that, and we'll send out more information. I would like to thank Brian for arranging the Santa Claus through the post office program. I know a number of people on the board have participated, so kids will wake up on Christmas morning and not be disappointed. And this year, as difficult as it's been, that's super and extra important. So thank you, Brian, for organizing that. And I have to also say, thank you, Gail Barron. You made everything possible, you and the board, but you have been a shoulder, an ear. You have given me sage and wise advice. I guess that's kind of redundant, sorry. I have always been able to turn to you, and I can't, I'm so grateful to you for all of the help that you've given me unflinchingly, unrelentingly, and all the time. So thank you. Again, thank you to the board for allowing me to embark on this very challenging and very exciting adventure. It's been something beyond anything I could have anticipated or expected. I've already been working with Valerie, although she did the bulk of the work for the last one, on chairing the Small Business Committee. Thank you, Sarah Chu, for all of the work. I know I begged you to stay on and chair because you did such a good job. So thank you for doing that. And I know you have a lot to do, and a lot going on. So I'm going to be working on that. And also starting, as I mentioned before COVID, an art committee to try and bring more art, public, theatrical, to the Upper East Side. And in January, through that committee, I'm working with Vanessa and Rebecca Dangor again on a pantomime that I hope the whole board could get involved in as something for the benefit of the neighborhood children. More on that to come. It was Mick Malamphy's idea, and it's not what you think of as a pantomime. So having said all of that, Will, over to you.
Thank you. First, I just want to join in applauding Alita for her time as chair. And as well, I want to applaud Gail Barron for her time as first vice chair and Rebecca Lamort for her time as secretary. I know both of you are also term limited, and you all three started the same time when I started in your current roles. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for your hard work, for being a resource over the last 3 years. I also want to congratulate Russell and everybody who was recently elected to new positions, and look forward to working with you guys next month. And then in some good news, I think most of the board members know her, but Saida Harrigan, who has been our part-time community associate, she has now become our full-time community associate. And so she has been such a fantastic employee over the last year and a half. We think the world of her. And so just send her an email. You all know her email address, so tell her congratulations and thank you, because we're excited that she wants to be with us more. And then finally, speaking of being with us more, all of you guys who are hosting meetings in January, we need your agendas by the end of the week as soon as possible, so that we're not trying to get them out during the week between Christmas and New Year's, where nobody's going to be checking their emails. So with that, have a very happy holiday, whatever you're celebrating. Stay safe and stay well.
Okay, so now I have to say I'm sorry because I forgot. Saida, welcome and congratulations for staying, and congratulations to all of the newly elected board officers. I know I have complete confidence in your work, and know that you will bring CB8 even more actively into the lives and businesses of those who live and work here. And also thank you to Rebecca Lamort. I'm sorry I said nothing earlier, but you were always a delight to see on the Zoom calls, as tedious as they can be, not the meetings, but just Zoom all day long. And then, but thank you so much for your hard work as a secretary. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the committee reports. Sorry, I dropped my paper. Let's start with zoning and development. Elizabeth, Ashby, and Elaine, please. Where are you guys?
Here we are. Yes, we had only one item, which took a great deal of time, because as you can see, the community is astounded by it, outraged by it. Elaine's going to give you just the central points, and we can answer any questions afterwards, but we had one resolution to turn down one of the most devastating proposals I think I've seen in all my 100 years on the community board. So Elaine's here somewhere.
Here.
Okay. Bring us up to date on the worst bits of the proposal, and then I hope that you can, that the community board will turn this down. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. For the past few months, we've been really focused on the application from the Blood Center. Not that there have not been other zoning issues that have been our focus, but this one is key. And you've all received and hopefully have read the resolution. The key points are this is an R8B area, residential, height limit 75. The Blood Center has partnered with a Longfellow real estate developer who does not have experience in building tall buildings. Most of what they've done is in localities, has been in partnership with higher education and possibly medical centers. The Blood Center, let me just build on the scoping session yesterday, has had options to relocate Kips Bay, East Harlem, 67th Street between York and First. They have rejected all of these. I guess it's not posh enough for them. The scoping session yesterday, I want to bring it up to date, really focused many of the groups on jobs for people, union jobs, etc. Let us know that no matter where the Blood Center was built, economic development would happen in that area. And I've identified based on our knowledge and given information. The other thing I would like to say is that if you read the Blood Center webpage on development, there's a reference there to the Manhattan Borough President supporting the project. She does not support the project in our community. That was very upsetting to see. I think it was taken out of context. But for tonight, what we're looking at is a resolution before you to deny the Blood Center application. Each of the meetings we've had focused on this have had hundreds of people from the community opposing the application. And tonight you heard a representative number of them. So with that, I would like to open this up for people to comment, speak to the resolution that's before us to deny an application that will cause major harm not only in our community, but sets the precedent that an R8B zoning in any part of our borough will be up for grabs, and we will see development that will ruin the contextual nature of our residential communities. So I turn that over. Anybody in our on the
Wait, I
board
see Barry,
speak to this?
Barry,
just
Marco, and Michelle are the first three people with hands raised.
okay. All right, we'll handle it. Thank you. Barry, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, and good evening, and thank you very much for calling on me. In anticipation of the vote that will come at the end of tonight's discussion, I'd like to offer the following thoughts and observations. As I have said in the past in similar circumstances, the vote tonight is premature and out of order. You talk about an application. In fact, there is no application before us. It's a proposal that the Blood Center, the New York Blood Center, has put forth. The Land Use Committee, a committee of the whole, was established in the early 1980s to deal with, of all things, land use applications. And in the late winter, early spring of 2021, just a few months away, the New York Blood Center land use application will come before this board in the ULURP process. And so a vote on a non-application at this time is out of order. Let me give you some background. In similar circumstances over the years, the board has formed task forces or work groups to work through the land use proposals that have come before us. I recall the MSK proposal to build a 30-something story facility in the mid-block east of First Avenue between 68th and 69th Streets. After many, many 3-hour-long meetings, the task force made its recommendations of modifications to the Land Use Committee, and the project was altered and built. Further, in 2011, the 7th Regiment Armory was referred to a CB8 work group created a deal with the plans to modify the facility into what is today the Park Avenue Armory, primarily a performance space. Along with traffic impacts, the group worked to deal with the location of the women's homeless shelter located within the building. The task force threshed out the issues, and soon after, the traffic had been rationalized, and the Lenox Hill Neighborhood House Shelter has been a benign presence in the community ever since. A similar task force was dealt with a proposal by the Metropolitan Museum of Art several years ago. Following several meetings with the community board offered and met several suggestions, which resulted in a project that was approved and implemented. These examples show that there is an appropriate method to follow in these circumstances. We should adhere to the process before we pass any resolution. Since the board will not see nor review the land use blood center's ULURP application before tonight's vote, I should vote no on the Zoning and Development Committee's resolution on the proposal. Thank you very much.
I want to answer this, Elaine and Elizabeth, because it involves land use, which is a full board committee. And this was the same argument that was made about Northwell and the resolution that came before the zoning committee with respect to Northwell's plans to expand. The land use committee deals with the full package, as you mentioned, Barry, with ULURP. But for the zoning committee, it's perfectly appropriate for them to look at this building in the context of zoning, and that's what they're doing. What we're going to talk about in old business later is, because it came up, is the draft environmental impact statement and all of those factors, which comes before ULURP. But this is an entirely appropriate resolution that came before the zoning committee. And I have to say that the blood center has not been very forthcoming with us. It has not shared information. It did not come back to the zoning committee. So I don't know that a task force would have any impact at all in respect to what the blood center intends to do. But this is a perfectly valid and viable resolution for the zoning committee to hear and to vote on. Thank you. Okay, Elaine and Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you. Marco? Marco, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, I'm rising in opposition of this application. This proposal could be unprecedented and reckless for our current public policy. It could damage its common sense of good, fair, and humanistic city planning concepts. Rather, it could establish a double standard public policy for those, the majority, that believe in law and order, versus the other ones, a few, that could be breaking any regulation.
I can't hear you, Marco.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, but you went out.
You faded out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, this proposal could be unprecedented and reckless for our current public policy. It could damage its common sense of good, fair, and humanistic city planning concepts. Rather, it could establish a double standard public policy for those, the majority, that believe in law and order, versus the other ones, a few, that could be break any regulation that are in their way to get more money than the rest. This dual public policy could generate social injustice and undermine the character of our residential RAB contextual district. The proposed excessive, bulky, and tall building could change our land use and zoning regulations, which are diametrically opposed to this grotesque and out of human scale commercial proposal of 334 feet height that could be the tallest building within our mid-block, surpassing 4.5 times bigger than the existing RAB district buildings, as well as being located on the narrow street. This bulky and tall building could be even more tyrannical and predominant than it really is, eliminating rear yard and setbacks, which are good livable concepts and provide light and scale. It could generate perpetual and depressing shadows on the surrounding buildings and the park. Agree, the blood center institution demands a new functional facility. However, it doesn't need a gigantic building for its requirements, nor a change from RAB to C2-7 district. The proposed blood center space is 50,000 square feet smaller than the maximum floor area allowed as a right of development. Therefore, this proposal rezoning is pure real estate investment strategy that has nothing to do with science. This proposal has 3 independent zoning lots with different owners and contrasting uses. Furthermore, if the proposed commercial rental laboratories could not become as profitable as they are expecting, this developer could change his mind at any time and replace his building within any permitted uses, ranging from dancing hall to catering facility, which are more money-making uses, demanding larger number of parking spaces and attracting an overwhelming number of cars. On the surrounding area of this proposal, there are very bad traffic conditions. Describe it briefly. Second Avenue is already saturated with bumper-to-bumper traffic, especially from 72nd to 60th Street, due to the entrance to the Queensboro Bridge and the FDR. Similar congestion is affecting York Avenue traffic on rush hour due to the corridor of hospitals. Deliveries and courier are making double parking in all over the streets and avenue. The Q line subway is already congested on rush hour only. Under this condition described, this proposal is bringing 5,500 more people, importing even more traffic on the already saturated traffic conditions. Consequently, our community will be in a gridlock. The trending solution could be congestion pricing, which impose more taxes to our residents, triggering an out-of-control inflation, affecting the middle and low-income families. Therefore, this action could push out these residents from our community, creating less inclusive neighborhood and a spatial segregation by income. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. The next is Michelle Birnbaum.
Yes, thank you. Just to build on everything that Marco said had to do with not only the zoning, but the quality of life. He addressed all of the pertinent facts, the shadowing, the height, the bulk, everything. So I'm not going to repeat that, but I do want to stress one thing, and especially for the newer people on the board. To some people, you know, zoning doesn't sound like a very exciting issue, but in fact, it is the basis of the organization and the sanity of our entire city. Without zoning, the city is in chaos. Without zoning, an apartment building, a gas station could be built next to an apartment building, a factory could be built next to a school. You know, there's zoning for a reason. And I want to stress that because I just want to stress to some people on the board who may not have given zoning real consideration, that if you think of in this particular situation, while all the quality of life issues are more than valid and more than salient, but the real crux of it is the zoning. And to cut away at the zoning, to chip away at the zoning, to violate the zoning is so serious. It is such a serious event on 67th Street and such a serious invasion. If you breach zoning, it is such a serious invasion in all parts of the city. So I want you to think about that, because when people, like on the scoping session yesterday, people came on, they said, well, it brought jobs, it brought construction jobs, it brought educational opportunities. True. It's all true. However, if this happened at another location, it would bring all of those jobs. But those are not the issues when you're talking about something as serious a breach of zoning as this is. If you have the mid-block at 75 feet, that's a 7-story building, and you're going up as high as this with no setbacks and this kind of bulk. And a bonus is that the blood center can, in fact, get the same or more space for itself by building on this site as of right, meaning that it does not have to breach the zoning. But please consider the zoning seriously. It's not just, oh, well, so it's a building, look, it's serving a good cause, look, a lot of people are going to work here. As a matter of fact, from 200 people that are entering this building every day, it'll go up to over 2,000. So you have to consider the quality of life that will bring. But I'm not even going to go into the quality of life issues. Marco set them forward. others will very eloquently, but please don't dismiss the seriousness of this kind of a breach of zoning. It's very serious. I urge my fellow board members to support this disapproval, this resolution, which disapproves, which means a yes will be a disapproval. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Shari?
Okay. I attended the 2 zoning and development committee meetings, and I also attended the scoping meetings. And again, we're getting to the point that we keep on repeating what each has said, but I thought one point was very telling, that when the R8B zone was established in 1984, the purpose was to keep mid-block zoning consistent with the 5-story tenements that surrounded it. So for this application to now request a rezoning defeats the whole purpose. And I'm very concerned that it will set a precedent, not only on 67th Street, but throughout the city. Any developer could say, but look what the blood bank did, blood center did, and they can use that as a precedent. So without belaboring, I will be voting in favor of the resolution to oppose this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Shari. Craig? Craig?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you for everyone for providing their comments. Some of you may have noticed that I was I was the only person to have not supported the resolution at the committee. So I just want to explain why I did that and what my feelings are. So at the committee meeting, I abstained because I want to see the resolution language first. And frankly, I was uncomfortable with the process to reject this project entirely before we had a chance to work to improve the project and to attempt to address the community concerns. Instead, I feel that we're reacting as if we're not willing to engage in difficult discussions, to work with an organization that is a longtime community cornerstone in an economic sector that is frankly the most important economic sector within our community district. I'm not saying I'm supportive of the proposal as it was presented. I agree that its height will have detrimental impacts to St. Catherine's Park and the Julia Richmond Educational Complex, and it may have impacts that would need to be mitigated, but that's why we do environmental assessments, and that's why we talk about mitigation, and that's why we try to engage in discussions to try to see how we can actually work with development prospects that may actually have some benefits to the community. And given the current state of the world and the real questions as to how New York City is going to recover from the devastating impacts of the pandemic, as we all know, there are a lot of people that may not come back to our community. There are a lot of changes to how people are going to work and where companies are going to decide to locate in the future and what office spaces are going to be like. So the fact that here we have a real opportunity to be able to attract economic activity that's really critical to not only our community, but the broader world in terms of the work that could be done right here locally. I fear that it's creating a perception that we're willing to entertain this proposal, or frankly, any proposals that may result in zoning changes. And I'd like to just remind everyone that zoning isn't etched in stone. Zoning practices in vogue 50 years ago are very different from what's considered to be best practices in zoning now. And undoubtedly, some of today's zoning practices are going to surely be outdated in the future and no longer in vogue. So yeah, I think this resolution will send the message that we're not thrilled with this proposal, and that's an important point to make for everyone who has legitimate concerns. I think there is a lot of potential overstating of how much it could impact certain aspects like the transportation system. We're talking about traffic. Yes, there's going to be some traffic associated with it. There are also ways to mitigate it. Those of us who support congestion pricing don't think that's necessarily a bad thing to have that. It's not going to be the end of the world. And at the same time, we now have a brand new subway station right around the corner from there. And it's not as if it's going to overload our subway system. So I think this resolution goes beyond where we should be going with it. And there are ways to be able to state our support without just making a blanket statement that we're essentially opposed to any zoning change, because sometimes zoning is much more nuanced than just saying no to zoning changes. And I'd like to just state my reasons for voting no on this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig. Let me just respond that for months, the Blood Center was asked to come to our meetings. They refused. In December, or let me say start in November, they came and they talked about programming. Little attention was given to the issues we are concerned about. In December, they refused to come. They were too busy. So we have attempted to engage. And right now we are at a point where we have a resolution before us. Elizabeth Rose is next. You there, Elizabeth?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
I think it is important to send a strong message in this case. There is a history of the Blood Center effectively trying to change what is currently a residential community that has significant local institutions, and not just the Blood Center, but many of the local institutions have been trying to leverage the notion of economic development and the need for new facilities to fundamentally change the character of this immediate neighborhood. And really, in this case, it goes so far as the Blood Center is asking for a variance that allows them to have signage on the building 40 feet high, midway up the building. It's the kind of signage that you would see like on the MetLife building. There is no question that this is a proposal for a commercial development in the middle of a residential district. And everybody on this community board either lives in the community board area or works in the community board area. And the reality is that we have all chosen, those of us who live in this community board area, we have chosen to live in an area that is primarily residential with the commercial characteristics of residential neighborhoods, where the businesses serve the local residential community, as well as people who work in the neighborhood or attend school in the neighborhood or have medical services in the neighborhood. And this is truly an attempt to create a spot zoning, because this is a spot zoning with the barest of fig leaves trying to connect it across 2nd Avenue, to create a commercial building, one that is sheer walls and sheer height up 334 stories with huge floor plates. And we have to ask why. And the why is not because the Blood Center actually needs it for their own purposes, because the as of right building that could be built, in fact, is larger than the space that the Blood Center will get in this proposed commercial development. They acknowledge that they can fit the entire growth of their staff, that they can fit all of their research purposes in an as of right building that is contextual with this community. And I believe that this community would stand up and cheer if the Blood Center chose to build that new as of right building. What this seems to be about is that the Blood Center wants to leverage the property that they own in order to get themselves a free building. That they have partnered with a commercial developer who needs enough square footage and height and bulk to not only provide a free building to the New York Blood Center, but then to make a profit on their investment. And that's not appropriate in this neighborhood. That's also just not, it's effectively a public subsidy for a single community organization. And I don't think that's an appropriate use of zoning. If the city wants to create a life sciences corridor, a life sciences hub, they can propose that, and they have. The city has proposed 3 sites for a large-scale life sciences development, all of which are appropriately zoned, all of which could accommodate the scale and bulk and height that is being proposed for this site. Nor is it necessary that life sciences buildings be, intimately connected with other medical institutions, as there's a new life sciences center being developed on the far west side. Columbia University has a life science center. There are many other places where life science hubs and the economic development that Craig was speaking about in particular are incredibly possible. So this to me really speaks to the blood center is trying to get themselves a new building, and they are selling out the community in order to get it. It is the community that is effectively paying for it. And I just don't think that that is an appropriate use of zoning. And I don't think a midtown commercial office building, even if it's for medical research, is the appropriate way for the life science, for the blood center to obtain a new building, which I think everybody would support.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Lori Boris. Lori, you there?
Thank you. Yes, I'm here. Okay, I just have a question. I really haven't, I was very moved by all of the people who came to speak against this. But I have a couple of questions. One is, I remember hearing, and maybe I imagined this, but I remembered hearing that the ULURP process was going to be suspended during the COVID crisis. Is that true, or did I mishear something?
It has been reestablished.
It's been reestablished?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And the second question is, did the blood center come to the zoning committee with this proposal and say, here, take a look at this? Or did you just catch wind of it and go to them and say, you have to come to our meeting and defend it?
We first heard about it and then finally got them to come in November.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
By the way,
I'd like to point out that we're the community board, and the community came to us in grave concern. And when asked to take it up, I think that the community board and the zoning and development committee were right. We are the community board, so therefore we hear the concerns of the community, and this was, in my opinion, justifiably, the community was justifiably concerned and asking for our assistance in protecting them and protecting our community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Adam Wold.
Yeah, most of what Elizabeth said is kind of what I was going to say, but in the end, I wonder what the point of this is, and I wonder if we're not getting the whole story. I just checked on some of the market reports. There are 55 million square feet available for lease in Manhattan for office space. So I'm wondering why Longfellow thinks they need to go and create another couple 100,000 square feet here. They must be getting a great deal. If they're getting a great deal, is the blood center not getting a great deal? And if so, why are they going through with this? I'm opposed to the idea because of the precedent it'll set in the RAP, but I'm also opposed because I think that this doesn't make economic sense. Someone's getting a raw deal here, aside from the community. So, and that's it. That's all I'll say to that.
Okay, thank you, Adam. We have never seen any financials on this plan from the Blood Center. Billy?
Yeah, I just want to make a couple quick points. I'm going to vote in favor of the resolution. I'm very concerned about what this proposal means for open space in a neighborhood like ours that desperately needs more open space, and what the implications are for the park. Concerned about the implications for Julia Richmond. And also, this is so transparently, in my view, zoning for dollars, which I think is something that citywide we should be opposing that kind of use of of zoning, as others have mentioned. But let me just briefly speak about process and whether this is in order or out of order. You know, I think there's some confusion, at least as I see it, because we have a zoning committee and we have a land use committee. And also, by the way, we are the land use committee, effectively, this full board. But zoning as a committee has taken up zoning applications before, took up the mansion restaurant issue. And I just want to, I guess one last point is, as a full board, when we voted on resolutions for the charter revision process, we have endorsed a sort of a pre-ULURP in the past. We have said that we want communities and community boards to have a say before the ULURP process begins. I see this vote as sort of being an endorsement of that approach, as saying that we think we should be able to weigh in pre-ULURP, and this is our mechanism for doing that as a zoning committee and as a full board, and it feels completely appropriate to me. And given that what we are doing right now is advisory, I don't think we're in any way, binding anybody, and we're certainly not binding the future land use committee when it reviews the ULURP application. So I think it's appropriate now, and I want to thank the committee for their hard work, and George James and others who have spent a lot of time on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Billy. Ed Hassag? Oh my God. Ed?
Yeah, absolutely, Elaine. I just wanted to echo what a lot of people have said before, and what I said the other night. The context of this building is just, I think some of the presentations said it best with the photographs, but just to echo some of the other points, in terms of process, just things that we've seen over and over again, and something I didn't mention the other night, these 20-foot floor plates in terms of vertical height. So a 330-foot building is put forward as like a 16-story building. It's very misleading, the entire process. So just to echo, not necessarily this particular project or the fact that maybe we will get this again in terms of ULURP, but just the lack of transparency, the lack of information, and just pleading again with our elected officials in terms of providing the community board with more input, a greater voice, if you will, in terms of these decisions. And the fact of the matter is that just when these projects go forward in the city and we're talking about land use and decision making, the community board is so, if the elected officials or whoever it is, they sort of like our decision, they'll echo it. If they don't, they go against it. But the point is that the system is sort of manipulated so that we're not given the complete amount of information. And sometimes we make decisions that when we look back, I'm thinking of 62nd Street recently, that building, that application that came before us, where if we had known then, now what we knew, we might have voted otherwise, myself included. But anyway, I just would like to say that if there's a way we can get better process, we have elections coming up, maybe people who are running, I just throw it out there. Echo what everybody else says. I support the resolution opposing this. I just think it's terrible land use, and it's a horrible precedent for the mid-block. Thanks, Elaine.
Thank you, Ed. David Halpern? David?
David, you're muted, so just unmute.
Just want to say that this is not something that can be nuanced. This is such a big building. It is totally irresponsible. And I think anybody who thinks that we can nuance this is mistaken. I think that this proposal at least puts them on notice, and I very much am in favor of it. I think I'd love to see it unanimous. That's my point.
Thank you, David. Russell?
Thank you. So I have some of the same procedural concerns that that Barry has. I mean, it seems to me that this is a land use issue, and I don't want to repeat the stuff he said, but this is going to come before us in the land use committee as an actual application down the road. And I guess in terms of the sort of points that Alita raised about zoning and land use, I mean, if you look back at the issues that the land use committee took up last week, those are all zoning issues. I mean, land use is, the land use committee deals with zoning. That's basically what a big part of what the land use committee does. So, so I think the fact that, we're going to see this later as an application, and it's not an application yet. And I would just sort of point out also, this resolution is based, I think, in significant part on the presentation that the Blood Center made, voluntarily after accepting an invitation to speak to the other committee. And there's other stuff that's happened since then, but even other presentations that I think happened at the zoning committee were incorporating information that the Blood Center provided. Just not to say that they shouldn't provide that information, they should. But I think if you have a situation where they haven't made an application yet, they're coming before us voluntarily, and I think it's perfectly appropriate for the community and the board to express concerns with the proposal. I have the same concerns, and as I've said before, I don't think the current proposal is acceptable. I don't think the current proposal should be approved. But and I think the fact that we've heard from the community and we can take their concerns back, we've heard from the board and we can take their concerns back, I would hope that we would be able to get some kind of response from the Blood Center that addresses the concerns that have been raised. And it's not clear to me how this resolution is going to lead to that. And I just don't see the purpose of a sort of pre-screen or pre-resolution ahead of the land use committee resolution that's really going to be the operative resolution on this. And I think we don't lose anything by waiting. We'll still be able to vote no. If nothing changes about the proposal, we can vote no when it comes to the land use committee. If they propose changes that aren't adequate, we can vote no when it comes to the land use committee. So I just don't see really any benefit from doing it this way with a sort of pre-resolution. So I'm sort of torn about how to vote, just because I do really think that the current proposal isn't acceptable as provided, but that's kind of where I'm torn about, because I think procedurally it just doesn't make sense to do it this way.
Okay, I just want to address this because, again, it has to do with the land use committee that Russell raised. The land use committee and the ULURP application, it is on its way to through the city, and we're really advisory at that point. It's also a much broader application because at that point they will have done the environmental impact statement, which was the purpose of the scoping session yesterday, to generate questions and concerns that they will have to address in their entire application as part of ULURP. This is saying to them, you are just simply too big. And if you want to continue with us and get support for ULURP, then you need to modify it. The zoning is just it's too out of line. It is a dangerous precedent, and it violates the R8B and sets up something that is out of scale, out of whack, and out of context with a residential community. That's what the zoning committee does. It looks at the zoning issues that come before the board. We heard from a combined, well, I don't know if they were duplicates, but well over 150 people from the public who spoke out in opposition to the Blood Center. The only people who spoke in favor of the Blood Center, at least at our meetings, were people who were, it seemed, associated or affiliated with the Blood Center and all of its representatives. So this seems like an entirely appropriate way to say to the Blood Center, this is not right. They haven't engaged with us. They haven't come to us at all and said, this is what we would like to do. What do you think about it? They haven't provided any information on aspects other than the plans that they showed, and the plans were preceded by a lot of talk, both at the scoping session and at the zoning meeting, about how much work that they do for the public, for public health. So I disagree with you, Russell, that this is not an appropriate place to hear this. I do think that the zoning issue by itself is an important facet of their proposal. In fact, maybe the most important in terms of what they have before us right now. and it deserves consideration, and it deserves a resolution, which again is not a binding resolution in the sense that now the city says to them, go and drop your plans and do something else, but it sends a strong signal about where we stand. And it says to them, if you want the board's approval, you need to rework it, you need to modify it, and you need to come back with something different before you can consider going through ULURP. And that's something that's important. And Billy is right. He and I chaired the Charter Commission task force. And one of the things that we asked for precisely this reason was a pre-ULURP, and a lot of boards did, and a lot of members of New York City residents did, was a pre-ULURP process in order to be able to have more input into what was coming before boards and the city and ULURP, and that was defeated. There are reasons I believe it was defeated that I was told, but that's beyond the scope here. So, so I do disagree with you on that. Thank you.
I mean, I'm not defending
Thank you.
substantively the proposal, and I just
I know you're
think
not.
the land use committee takes up zoning issues. I agree that they're important, but that's what they do.
Alita, I want to thank you. And Russell, let me say that my understanding from people who've been on the board longer than I have is the land use committee was set up because the regular board meetings were going to 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was separated out. I think there needs to be, and not tonight, but down the road, a discussion. We are the only community board that has a land use committee of the whole, and then has a zoning. And the borough president has questioned why we're doing that. I don't want a discussion tonight, but there is a history that we all need to understand. And I'd like to now move to the next speaker or person with their hand up. Tricia, thank you. Tricia, are you there?
Yep. Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
I just want to, I've been listening and to everybody's comments and looking over the resolution. I'm opposed to the project and would be voting in favor tonight, but I also, I just want to call attention to something that I don't think has been said. I've been really disturbed by some of the comments from the public, and even you, Elaine, when you said that there was a misrepresentation by the Blood Center on the support from Gail Brewer. If that's true, that's extremely concerning for me. And I was disturbed when at the hearing, Julia Richmond Center had said that they had never been contacted by the Blood Center and that they had to go through a hearing. They had to go through a community board meeting to actually see them face to face. I don't think that that's been reflected in the resolution. And I think I am in support of a kind of pre-ULURP notification and communication to the Blood Center, notifying them that this type of behavior and that what they're trying to do is not acceptable, and that they need to follow a better process that's more inclusive of community input. But I don't think that that's in the resolution right now. And so I guess I'm trying to think of if there were ways to maybe tighten up the language a little bit and reflect that like the misrepresentation of elected support and the lack of engagement with community, the surrounding community, and the lack of communication with Julia Richmond and the surrounding buildings is something that we take very seriously and would want to see addressed when they go through the process. I also think that it's important to identify that we do recognize that this is pre-ULURP, and that when we hear this again, we would want to see these issues addressed, if that's a way to do that. So I hear you, Barry, and I do understand concerns about process. I think that because of these kind of extremely concerning issues for me, when I hear those types of actions, if they are true, I take them very seriously. So I do feel like it's probably appropriate for a resolution at this point, but I would want to tighten up the language to recognize that we are not, that this is pre-ULURP, and to recognize that and to set out kind of issues that we would want them to specifically address. That would be my I guess, friendly amendment if we can. And I'm happy to suggest language to look at it closer if that's helpful or if people are supportive of that.
Okay, thank you, Tricia. I think the minutes of the previous meetings indicated the lack of contact to Julia Richmond, but indeed we could, on the whereas with Julia Richmond, it can be added that there was no engagement with them. And yet we had been told by the Blood Center they engaged. So thank you very much, Tricia. Anthony.
Unmute Anthony.
Yeah.
Okay.
Normally, I try not to speak very much at full board meetings because they run on so long. I can't help myself. This is an application. It is not a complete application, but it's an application. It's an application, and they've spent a lot of time and a lot of money on architectural designs, on whatever studies they've already done. It is also bad zoning, bad environment to modify and affect that application. In fact, the environmental impact statement process calls out for our comments. That's what that meeting yesterday was about. We need to ensure that the environmental impact statement, which speaks to the appropriateness of the project in 18 or 20 different technical categories, examines all the possible impacts, not just those selected by the applicant for review, because that's what would happen if we didn't object and didn't object now. Obviously, I'm voting for the resolution.
Thank you, Anthony. Valerie. Oops.
Hi. I'd like to call the question. I think we've heard enough. I think it's time to support the community and influence this process at the first chance we have. So I make a motion to call the question.
Is there a second?
Ed Hartzog.
Okay, the question has been called. Those in favor of calling the question?
Well, we need to lower the hands of all the people who have their hands raised so we could ascertain.
Okay,
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I think we should do those opposed to calling to question.
Agreed from my point of view.
Okay, so a no would be opposing it, right?
Just
No,
raise your
this is
hand
just
if
the,
you're-
this is just the calling the question. Elaine.
Question,
So,
right,
yeah.
right. That's what I meant. All
Yeah.
those opposed. Okay, I don't see. Will, do you see any?
Chuck Warren and Rebecca Dengor, but it's not enough to carry the.
Chuck cannot vote for cause. Please explain yourself, Chuck. Is it a?
This is just for a motion to.
Oh, I understand.
No.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Yeah. No, Elaine is correct. I have a conflict here because our firm is representing the Blood Center. So I don't want to vote even, I don't want to be recorded even on the motion to call the question.
Right. So you're recusing.
That's why I raised my hand. Right, I'm recusing.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Okay, having only one no, the calling the question has been passed. We now will move to the vote on the resolution.
Before you do that, just to correct, it's not a no vote, it's a not voting for cause, so it's
Yeah,
not
I said that,
correctly.
right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I mumbled. I'm sure I did. Okay. I have
Right,
down.
As a reminder, this is a resolution in opposition, so a yes means no. So if you, please raise your hand if you'd like to vote no, abstain, or not vote for cause. Barry?
No.
Lori?
Abstain.
Taina?
No.
Craig?
Abstain.
Russell?
No.
Carolina,
No.
Felice,
No.
Chuck, I'll call on you again, just so it's official.
Yes, not voting for cause. Did you hear me, Rebecca?
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks.
Okay.
All right, we'll tabulate those votes for you as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, while Rebecca's doing that, why don't we get Craig and Chuck up here for the Transportation Committee? Not that they have to go very far.
Are we unmuted?
Yeah, really quickly, I do have a word that two of our council members just joined us.
So why don't we hear from them before we turn to transportation? Is that all right, Craig and Chuck?
Of course.
Great. Okay, Will?
If they don't mind raising their hands or saying something.
Yeah, Will, it's hard for Will to find you, so just
There you are.
there you
Thank
go.
you. Sorry, Keith.
Hey there. Is Ben here too? I don't know if he's here. I think he's on his way. So why don't I wait for him? Maybe because I think we were going to give a joint report.
Okay.
So do we want to do that?
Okay.
Will you tell me what makes most sense?
If you want to wait for Ben, then that's fine, and let's just go to transportation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Sorry.
We won't take long. We only have.
Well, wait, Rebecca has her hand up, so maybe she's done the tally. Rebecca?
Yeah.
Sorry, Chuck.
38 yes, 5 no, 2 abstentions, and 1 not voting for cause.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, floor is yours, Chuck. Craig.
Okay. What we only had one resolution, and it was a unanimous resolution, and residents of Roosevelt Island who brought to our attention the question of slippery, cycling conditions on the Roosevelt Avenue bridge. There is a path there, but it's the surface of it is such that it's very slippery, and there've been a lot of accidents and a lot of problems. So our resolution requests that the DOT address the bike safety issues, the Roosevelt Island Bridge, by instituting appropriate bike-friendly materials that can be used to improve or replace the existing metal grading surface that is unsafe for cyclists. And that, as we said, that was a resolution that was yes, 18 yes with two public members yes, and 0 no's. Now, I don't know if there's anybody has Lynn, who it was joint, I should say, it was joint with the Roosevelt Island Committee, and I know that Lynn wants to say something, so why don't we recognize Lynn?
And while we unmute Lynn, let me just add that we did hear from New York City DOT that they are going to look into bike-friendly materials and request funding for this. So they have already taken our request and discussion seriously.
Yep.
Yes, Craig, you took my
Oh,
thunder.
He jumped.
So what I would like to say is that we are super excited. We've had a coordination between DOT Queens and DOT Manhattan, and that they are in the process of addressing and costing what it would take to do what the nice gentleman earlier mentioned today in terms of covering the bridge. And we are looking forward to, once the costing and evaluation is done, that the DOT will put it in its, I believe, the 2022 budget was my sense of it. So I'm really super excited that Craig and Chuck brought this forward. And I'm really excited that there's some movement with DOT in a very short period of time. We've raised this issue with the DOT probably about 4 times in the last 10 years. And to see it get this far in such a short time now, we're thrilled. And I thank everyone for their time and for us being able to move that forward.
And thanks, Lynn, for bringing this up really to our attention at the committee. We appreciate that too. Marco Tamayo, I see. Marco, is your hand up there?
Thank you. I would like to call the question.
Okay. Is there a second? Yes, I see.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of that? Is there anybody opposed to that? Okay. Why don't we call the roll? I don't know if it's Rebecca or Billy or who's on.
Yep, it's up to me now.
All right.
So now we're taking the vote on this. Please raise your hand if you are voting no, not voting for cause, or abstaining. Give it a second. All right, seeing none, I'll tally the votes. Thanks.
Okay, Alita, I think we're done. Is there not, we're done with our presentation.
Great. Thank you, Chuck, and thank you, Craig. And I see Councilmember Powers has his hand up. Councilmember?
Yeah, sorry. I think Councilmember Kalis is coming, but I have to jump in a second. So I wanted to just say a quick hello and think he'll be jumping on shortly. We wanted to do this together because we have a citation.
Not too late.
Oh, he's here. He's here. Here he is. Hello.
And he's all dressed up. Wow, I'm impressed.
He looks very dapper and more dressed up. But we do have a citation here for our friend and our leader and our outgoing chairwoman, Alita Camp. There it is, lighted.
Thank you.
Which you will get in person at some point in time. But we wanted to say collectively a very big thank you for all your service. I know you're around and you're going to still be involved, but doing this is not an easy task, and it requires a lot of patience, a lot of teamwork, a lot of effort. And I know that both Councilmember Kalis and I think Bennett wants me to read it, but we both have a deep appreciation for your leadership and partnership on the board. And I always say community boards are really the people that are putting in the sweat equity for their community and really are doing this on their own time. And so we deserve, everybody here really deserves always a big thank you, and we don't give you enough of that. But as both of us were former community board members before serving on the council, we know even nights like tonight, what the late nights are like serving your community. Being a chair is that times 20. And so we wanted to make sure that we said a very big thank you on your way out of this role, and to say thank you for everything you've done. And we're excited to have Russell pick it up. And I know that he'll do a great job here as well. And so we'll give you that citation. I'm sorry we can't do it in person, but we wanted to say thank you. And I just also wanted to personally say a very big thank you to Jenna from my office, who I know had told everybody that she will be departing, but I've been lucky to have a staff that's been with me since the beginning, Jenna being part of it. And she is responsive, organized, always gives me the rundown after CB8 meetings and keeps me updated. So I've been really lucky to have her for the last few years. You can't keep them forever in this business, so you gotta make sure they get to good places, and she's gonna be heading up to the Bronx. We'll forgive her for that. But so I wanted to say a very special thank you to her as well and give her a shout out. So Ben, I don't know if you wanted to jump in here as well. Did we lose Ben? Maybe we lost Ben.
He's muted. You're muted, Ben.
Okay, yeah, there he is.
I muted myself. I'm in a household with lots of people. So I want to thank Councilmember Powers for the partnership. I think this is my first dual citation, but Alita, you deserve it. We've had an opportunity to work with a lot of community board chairs, and you have taken the role and been very proactive with it. You have definitely pushed a strong agenda. The rezoning for mandatory affordable housing and desegregation wouldn't be moving anywhere without you, and you have fought the mayor and Department of City Planning along with Elaine and Elizabeth and everyone on the community board, including passing multiple resolutions. It is with your strength in the community board that we're able to fight a NYCHA infill project where they said it was a done deal when it started. And even most recently, with a blood center project where many people in the community have raised concerns, you have made sure that the community board is a place that hears those concerns. So I'll just say for my part, you are definitely willing to hold anyone and everyone accountable, including myself, and we are stronger for it. So thank you. And thank you for Keith for waiting all this time for me. I had an event that was supposed to end at 8:30 and they decided to run till 9:15. So Please accept my apologies. But congratulations, and we look forward to being able to at least send this in the mail to you or make it available for you to pick up however you wish.
Thank you both, council members. I'm very grateful. It has been an enormous pleasure getting to know you and working with you. And I am grateful for how responsive you've been, that I've been able to have meetings with you and call you up and write to you on your personal emails. And that means a lot. It means it's easier to try and get things done around here. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And happy holidays to everyone.
Happy holidays to you too.
Safe
Happy
and
New Year.
Healthy and warm.
And stay safe and wear your
Yeah,
mask
you
and
too.
social distance. So
Absolutely.
I know
Thanks,
you
everyone.
will.
Nice to
Thank
see
you. Bye. Thank you. I was about to leave this meeting, but that doesn't make any sense. So, okay, we have everyone and we are up to, parks, I believe. So Barry and Tricia, go. Oh, do we need a count on the resolution for transportation, Billy?
Sure. Yeah, I can give you, the vote was unanimous, 46 in favor and 0 opposed.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll get to parks. Tricia, Barry?
And while you're here, did you have any other
Oh,
updates?
report, yeah.
Your office didn't give a report yet.
Right.
I will try to go very, very fast, knowing the late hour. We've been devoting a lot of time to making sure that the community has their voice heard in the Blood Center. As I mentioned when I was praising Alita and the zoning committee in one breath, because they have been working very closely together. I want to thank them for, I think, having 3 or 4 hearings on this in less than a month, and for folks coming out to the scoping session and making your voice it will likely be back in the spring, and just please keep tuned, and community board will continue to be the place to go. As we celebrate the holidays, it's currently I think the 7th night of Hanukkah. And I've been thinking a lot about the homeless. I want to thank our community board for working with us to open more services in the neighborhood. We just opened a new supermarket style food pantry with the Urban Outreach Center. And I'm incredibly happy about that. And I would just say we recently wrote an op-ed that just said, where everyone else sees a dead city because there's like 10,000 vacant apartments, I realized that with 18,000 kids who woke up in a homeless shelter and 17,000 family members, there's actually just 10,000 families that make up 35,000 people in our shelters. And we could house them right now by just renting all those vacant apartments or even buying them. It's still cheaper than the hotels. We've been fighting a lot with the mayor, who is saying that we have enough for our stockpile when we don't have enough N95 masks. If you know any healthcare professionals or city workers who don't have it, let us know. And we still do have masks and hand sanitizers to give away through partners. Schools are physically closed, but in the pandemic world, somehow we don't get snow days anymore. So kids have to go to class on Zoom. We opened the new Carl Schurz Park playground. We were able to get that done in about 14 months, which is the fastest we've ever seen, with $3.3 million, most of the funding from my office with some help from our borough president. We finished a sinkhole. We opened more learning bridges locations. We've opened homeownership opportunities that will hopefully come and you'll be able to apply for. And something we've been talking about for quite a while, early voting was a nightmare. I want to thank Alita and Sharon for joining a borough-wide task force that we're putting together with the borough president on trying to identify locations for early voting. If you're interested, please reach out to policy@benkalos. There's a lot going on. There's too much to go into. Visit benkalos.com/newsletters. And thank you for all that you do. This is a volunteer position. You don't get paid, and we are better for it. So I just want to thank all of you, wish you all a happy new year. And I hope to see you in the new year. And I'm hoping, I'm counting down the days till January 20th. That's just a random day I'm counting down to, when I think that the world, at least for me, is going to get a lot better and we can leave 2020 behind us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad that Will reminded you to give us your update. And also, if I saw you in person, that would be good, because then there would be no COVID. So that can't come too soon. Thank you. Have a really happy holiday. Happy New Year. Stay safe. And thank you for, you know what? You always come to the board, or almost always, to deliver your report. That's a big thing. We can't say that about everyone. So it's a big deal. Thank you. Bye. Okay, so now Tricia, Barry, floor is
Tricia, it's all
yours.
yours. Tricia, you there, dear?
Yep, I'm here. Hey, guys.
Please
We
take
had
it.
one unanimous resolution tonight, but I just wanted to tell you, just take a minute to tell you about it. It was in partnership with Community Board 10 that we passed this resolution. It calls for a permanent exhibit to be created, recognizing the exonerated 5 in Central Park. CB10 has been working on this for well over a year. They presented to us one of the most thorough presentations that I think we've seen in quite some time, demonstrating the need for something like this. And overwhelmingly, some of the comments that we heard from our both members of the committee and members of the public were things like this could be one of the most important resolutions that we've passed in recent years for the Parks Department. This really does it seems something that's incredibly timely and important to pass right now. I urge you to take a look at our minutes and to read more about the project, and would love to entertain any motions. Oh, I see Michelle Birnbaum.
Yeah, there's no question that this was a terrible time in our history. The only good thing about this we can say is that the Central Park 5 are now the exonerated 5. It was a great tragedy. And young lives were really disturbed, families. I mean, it's obvious to everybody. However, this resolution is not really talking about how terrible the event was. We can all agree on that. This is talking about something to be put in the park. Mm-hmm. And in fact, what's in front of us are no plans. It just says that we would like to see a monument. Now, I, for one, on other issues and other committees, I never vote affirmatively on a concept. To me, we have no idea what will be put there. I mean, maybe it'll be a 15-foot sculpture and we think it should be 8 feet. Maybe there'll be, I don't know, some narrative in a light box and we think it should be a bronze plaque. Without knowing what the plan is and what they're going to put there, I'm going to have to abstain on this resolution. I hope they're going to come to us with something eventually. I hope that this resolution is not going to just give them carte blanche, because there are a lot of things to consider with something like this that will go in the park, just like everything else that we vote on that goes in the park. So I'm going to abstain on this, but I am going to hope that if they are planning on doing something, that some plans come to us, very specific plans. This leads you to believe that it's going to be a little more extensive than maybe just a sculpture or something like that. But whatever it is, I want to know the materials. I want to know the representation. I want to know the plan. So for the meantime, until we get that, I'll be abstaining.
Trish, you want to have a comment? You have a comment?
Sorry?
You have a comment?
I do. I just want to respond, and I understand and respect your abstention, Michelle. I, like you, am somebody who does not generally like to vote on concepts. It makes me uncomfortable, and I generally like to see more details involved. I did support this, and I am continuing to support this. This is having worked on the Women's History Monument in Central Park. This reminds me of the early stages of that, where we saw a group being supported by our elected officials, being supported by every other community board that borders the Central Park, that wants to work collaboratively to find the right type of monument and to involve all the community boards in the process. And I wanted to support that. They don't have the specifics yet, and if that's the reason for your abstention, I understand it. But they recognize that this is in an early phase. They recognize that this is 2 years. They're setting a goal for themselves of 2 additional years to get into the specifics, and I anticipate that they will involve us in the process. Actually, I think some of our board members asked to be a part of the process in terms of finding an artist, identifying more specifics. So for all of those reasons, because they are being very inclusive, because we recognize, and we didn't get into the specifics, you'll notice we simply supported their resolution, which goes into more detail of the importance of something like this, I felt that I personally at least felt very okay and proud to kind of cast my vote in support of this concept, which is not typically how I vote either.
Let me,
yeah, Barry.
no, let me add my 2 cents. I agree with Tricia. We are in agreement with the efforts and the direction that CB10 is taking. And what we're merely supporting is their efforts to get a monument going, or get an exhibit going. Of course, anything that will be concretely proposed will be reviewed by the 5 community boards surrounding the district. We will be very much involved with getting involved in what's happening. But right now, we just wanted to let the city know that we are in support of moving this thing forward, and we don't want to be an anchor holding it back.
Yeah, I would have thought that a letter supporting it and stating specifically that we're supporting the effort being made by the committee to, whatever the verbiage is, to put something in the park, and that we look forward to seeing the specifics so that we could make a final determination on its appropriateness, it's this and that. So, but to me, this resolution is not something that I could support the way it's worded here and now. So anyway, thank you.
Okay. Russell Squire.
Thanks. I have what I hope is a friendly amendment. We're saying that we support the efforts of Community Board 10, and I think it would be good to also say sort of specifically that we support the installation, or that we support a permanent installation. I mean, kind of more closely mirroring the wording of the CB10 resolution, in addition to saying that we support their efforts, the fact that we actually support the installation itself. And I don't think that forestalls us from making an evaluation of the actual proposal for what specifically is going to go there. But I just think that would be a little bit clearer and more forceful.
I'm totally fine with that.
That's good with me, Russell. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Rebecca Dangor, then Barbara Rutter.
I was going to call to question.
There are a number of hands raised. I just don't know if anyone will give everybody an opportunity to decide if they want to continue it to say something on this. Everybody has their hands raised still. We will try to be, there are some folks who are dropping off. We will try to be, I will ask just for folks to be brief if you can. Barbara, and then Peggy and Elizabeth.
So Tricia, no one seconded calling the question, if that's what Rebecca was saying.
Technically, Elizabeth Ashby gave us.
Oh, she did? Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I didn't see it. Never mind.
Okay.
I'd like to say something. The only thing I disagreed with Tricia is I'm not against concept if the resolution says it. I think that the concept is something we are supporting, and that does not preclude the fact that we would object to something specifically has. I also think, I haven't read the resolution in a little bit, so maybe my memory is wrong. What they proposed is something more than just a monument, really, with trying to find space for education. And it was fuzzy. They didn't have a space. They didn't know exactly where. But the concept of, and more of using the park as an education space, as making it aware of what's happening, which is so important in that community. And I am all in favor, not only in this case, but basically concepts do not bother me at all, as long as it's stated that way. I never feel like I can't say no to the final project once the
Barbara, the resolution calls for a permanent installation. So I think we're fairly clear on the direction we're going.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
That was just my comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. Peggy, Price, Elizabeth Rose, and then Elaine Walsh.
Thank you. So I just wanted to tell the board, in case they didn't know, the Parks Department traditionally has a policy against putting up installations such as statues in the park. We know that there are plenty, but they really do have an objection. to putting up more. They didn't particularly want to have the women's statue that was put in August. So the reason I'm very supportive of Tricia's resolution is because I think we need to send a message to the Parks Department that they need to take this seriously and that we want this. And later, of course, we can vote on whether the actual design is what we want, because they will come back to us with a design and we will be voting on it again. But first, you have to persuade the Parks Department to allow this to be done before anything can really be moved forward. So that's all I just wanted to say, and thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Peggy.
you, Peggy.
Elizabeth Rose and then Elaine Walsh.
Thank you. I have to admit that I'm a little confused as to when it's appropriate to vote on a concept versus when it's appropriate to wait for a formal application. However, setting that aside, I would like to offer a friendly amendment, which is that we add a phrase at the "be it resolved" that reflects and we look forward to participating in the process of design approval, or something to that effect, which I think would help address some of the concerns about when are we going to get to see what this is and how do we approve something that we have never seen, but that also asserts our interest in being a participant in that process, and that this isn't just we're going to approve anything that gets proposed. I think it is an extraordinarily important event that happened in New York City in all of our lifetimes and living here. And there is such underrepresentation of these kinds of issues in New York City in our public art that I think this is hugely important, and I am very supportive in concept. And I recognize other people's concerns and some of my own of, not wanting to approve something that you don't actually know what it might look like. So I offer a friendly amendment to that effect.
I have no problem with this. Barry, if you do.
No, I do not.
Thanks, Elizabeth Rose. And then Elaine.
I'm going to abstain for various reasons, having been involved in this case years ago.
Okay.
Is there a second to call on the question?
I see Lori Borres. Thanks, Lori. All in favor?
Call the roll.
Great.
All right, if you'd like to vote no, abstain, or you're not voting for cause, please raise your hand now. Michelle Birnbaum,
Abstain.
thank you.
Rebecca, Elaine indicated she was abstaining, but she didn't raise her hand. So Elaine, could you clarify your vote, please? Sorry for interrupting, Rebecca. Elaine, are you there?
Yeah, I said I'm abstaining for personal reasons.
No, I'm not arguing with you.
Ago.
I know that. I'm not arguing with you about that. It's just that Rebecca, to call the roll, she needed clarification. So she needed
I'm
your hand
abstaining.
up. Okay.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, everyone will be recorded as a yes vote. Thanks.
Thanks, Rebecca. Okay, last one before we get to the old business item is landmarks. David, Jane.
Do you want the vote total quickly?
Yes,
before
while
we
they're
start
getting
landmarks?
ready, while they're stepping to the podium, yes.
For the Parks resolution, there were 44 votes in favor and 2 abstentions.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hi, Jane.
The Landlords Committee heard one resolution this past Monday night. It was a unanimous approval for a new curtain wall for the Rockefeller wing of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Will, do you want to show the visual? Can you do the screen share on that?
Yeah, you should be able to see it now, right?
Yes, thank you. You don't see the slope here. It does have a 90-degree slope or 70-degree slope, I'm sorry. But in any case, you can see that the panel, the grid, the individual panes are a little larger than they were previously. The Metropolitan Museum did a beautiful, beautiful presentation to us the other night. The existing curtain wall has deteriorated badly and needs to be replaced, not only because it's so deteriorated, but to meet the curatorial objectives of the collection that's housed in the wing. Does anybody have any comments or?
Yeah,
Will,
Marco and Ed have their hands up.
Okay, Marco.
Thank you. Call the question.
Is there a second?
Ed, is that what you're doing?
Yes, second.
Thank you.
All right,
Move
if you would like
approve. Go ahead, Rebecca.
sorry, Jane. If you would like to vote no, abstain, or not vote for cause, please raise your hand. Going once, going twice. It's approved 46 to 0 to 0.
Thank you,
Thank
Rebecca.
you. That was nice and short. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jane. And thank you, David. Okay, let's talk about old business for a little bit, or as long as you have questions or comments. So yesterday was the scoping session for the Blood Center, and the scoping session, and it took me a while really to understand exactly what it's for, is to help the DCP determine, or the commission, the City Planning Commission, determine what goes into the environmental impact statement that the Blood Center has to prepare as part of its ULURP application. So if we have questions on specific areas or need explanations or have comments on them, the Blood Center has to respond and has to either say it's not applicable or respond in its draft environmental impact statement. And then there comes a final one as a precursor or as part of the ULURP process. So based on what they submitted as the draft environmental assessment, and then based on the City Planning Commission's finding that there will be a positive impact, meaning not a good impact, but that there will actually be an impact, they had the scoping session. And there were a lot of members of the community that turned out. Councilmember Ben Kalos turned up. I spoke on behalf of the board based on what had been discussed at the zoning committee and what the community members had come and talked about as well. So I want to prepare, and it's important for the board to prepare written testimony to be given to DCP. We have until the end of December to do that, and cover the subject matter areas that the Blood Center should respond to, or areas of concern. So I reached out to all of the committee chairs and I asked them for an evaluation or for questions on the various substantive areas. I got back some responses, and in some of them in significant detail. So there are 19, sorry, I just want to go to what I have on what I put up on my screen, which are the 19 areas, technical areas that may be addressed in an environmental impact statement. And they're all in what's called the New York City Planning Environmental Review Process. It's part of, or refers to, the seeker technical manual. And if you go down the page, there's a scoping basic category. And in it, it lists 20 subject matters, going from land use, socioeconomic conditions, community facilities and services, open space, shadows, historic resources, urban design and visual resources, neighborhood character, natural resources, hazardous materials, infrastructure, solid waste and sanitation, energy, traffic and parking, transit and pedestrians, air quality, noise, construction impacts, and public health. It also includes waterfront revitalization, but we can agree that that doesn't apply here. So a lot of members of the zoning committee and a lot of members of the public raised issues relating to all of those categories. So I'm asking the board for permission to address and to raise questions in all of those categories that pertain to the Blood Center. It doesn't mean that ultimately there will be either an approval or disapproval of their plans in a ULURP process. It's simply saying to them, okay, we know that there are going to be shadows. Please address the shadows, not just on St. Catherine's Park, for this is an example, but also on JRAC, and also on the residential buildings, and also on the ball courts at St. Catherine's Park? Or what is the impact on pedestrian congestion on the streets if you have 2,000 additional employees going back and forth from the blood center? What will their impact be on use of the park? So I'm asking you for permission to or assent to really asking them questions in all of the categories. I'm happy to have the help of any committee chairs. I usually send this around for edits and approvals, but because we didn't have any time from the scoping session yesterday, we didn't have time from the scoping session yesterday to really, and there's no time for another board approval of an actual writing document before the December 31st deadline to submit testimony. And because I have learned from people at other boards as well as people on this board how essential this is to the ULURP process and to getting a full and complete picture of what the impacts of the blood center will be on the neighborhood, I want to be able to do something that's thorough and comprehensive. Well, I guess that's a little redundant too. So I see some board members have their hands raised. Okay, Shari? Will, would you unmute Shari, please?
I listened to your testimony yesterday at the scoping meeting, and I thought the questions that you asked were very comprehensive. So are you looking for a resolution or just a motion? Or I would say we should give you the authority to continue to work on the scoping questions. I was very pleased with what you, after that session that we had on what we should be doing at the scoping meeting, I thought what you did was very appropriate. You asked all the questions, and if there's any more, but I thought what you had already prepared was really excellent.
Thank you.
So I'm saying yes. I'm giving you yes. Yes, you should do it.
Thank you. I did try and limit myself to what was raised in the zoning meeting and the public comments. I think there are more and broader questions to be asked, and I did use the opportunity between the MAS presentation and preparing the testimony to really learn as much as I could about the nature of the process. So thank you. Michelle, would you unmute Michelle?
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate. I was going to say what Sherry said. I was listening to the scoping session as well. You asked most of the only things I added, and I texted it to you afterwards, was that it was the city bus route, and also the cars for hire, if you're talking about traffic, and also, which Julia Richmond raised, is their constant, the school buses that are coming in and out of there, because there are about 5 schools in that building. But other than that, and that's all I could think of at the top of my head, but your letter, your testimony was quite comprehensive with all of the questions. And I think maybe you should send it around to everybody, because then they could see what you said, and maybe it'll trigger a thought in somebody's mind. But the truth of the matter is, I would yield to you to continue on that same path and give you the authority to do it. And I'm also assuming that our resolution is going to be attached to, that's going to go to city planning.
We'll be submitting a packet of materials.
So it'll include the resolution. I also wanted to just say, which I want to say last time, with people raising the issue about it's really a land use issue, and they'll address it when they get the presentation. And they're talking about maybe something will come up with mitigation, and so that we can collaborate with the blood center. The only mitigation will be a reduction in size. So there is no conversation to be had that we want at the moment, that we want a different facing, that we want a different lobby, that we want a different anything. The only mitigation is size. And since they can build as of right and get more square footage than they currently have, I think is the biggest argument, aside from, as I said, the very, very important zoning argument. So I'm glad we're going to have an opportunity to see a final proposal at land use, but I don't think they're voluntarily, without our comments and comments of others, they are not voluntarily going to reduce the size. So hopefully our resolution will be an impetus for them to do that.
Thank you, Michelle. Will, would you unmute Elaine, please, and then Barbara Rutter?
I want to support what Shari and Michelle said, give you authority. Be glad to look at it. Indeed, it could trigger more. But I think when you submit the entire package from the community people who also presented and all of their slides and photos and drawings, I think that will be very impacting for us. So go ahead and do it, and I'm glad to look at it and try to think of more things to say.
Thank you. Barbara, Rudder, Will, please. Thank you.
I agree with everybody, but rather than having 50 people say the same thing, can we just take a hand vote if everybody agrees and gives you free rein? I think it's almost 10 o'clock now, and that would.
It is. We have 7 minutes to go. Will, is that, this is stuff I'm still a little wobbly on, and I can't believe I'm saying this. Will, is it, do we need an official resolution, or is a hand vote that Barbara suggested okay? I don't even see you up here. Will, are you there?
I'm here. I would check with Valerie or Chuck from a parliamentarian standpoint, but I think it's fine.
Valerie, Chuck, whoever raises their hand first gets the floor. Are you still here? You know what? Let's just do it. Let's do it absolutely the right way. And if someone just makes a motion to approve submitting comprehensive testimony as a part of a packet to city planning, then we can do it that way. Oh, Valerie raised her hand. Okay, Valerie. Will, you need to unmute her, please.
I've tried.
Oh, Valerie, are you still muted? You're still muted.
Sorry, I was just getting out of a taxi for my office. I think just do the resolution. It's easier.
So let's do that. Does someone have a resolution to propose?
Well, since I said it, I will have the resolution. I would like to add one thing, and that's to say that it's not necessary in whatever words for you to come back to us. It's really late timing. I think you'll go crazy if you expect everybody to have some comment on it before the end of December. So
you don't have to, but if you want to, you can.
Okay.
And then is there...
Democracy sometimes is difficult to lead. It
is, but this is the truest form of democracy. So is there a second? I see Elaine's raised her hand. Okay, then is it your turn, Rebecca Lamore? I don't know whose turn it is.
My turn.
Okay, Billy, thank you.
Okay, please raise your hand if you are voting no, not voting for cause, or abstaining. Okay, seeing no hands, we'll record the vote. Thanks.
Thank you. So, well, Rebecca Dangor, you have your hand up.
I just have one other small piece of old business. It's just an update. I'd just like to tell everyone, if you remember back in July, I believe it was, we passed 3 resolutions regarding contact tracing and confidentiality and privacy. And I would just like you to know that the Contact Tracing Confidentiality Act has been sent to the governor, and he has until December 23rd to sign. And if you were one of the 43, I believe, people who voted yes to our resolution, I encourage you to call him. Thanks.
Could you maybe send around or ask Will, we could post it or something, a phone number or an email address or something, Rebecca? Or if you could put in the chat. Okay, and then I see Michelle also has her hand raised. Michelle?
Yeah, I just wanted to encourage other organizations in the community to write letters about the Blood Center. I will do it on behalf of Historic Park Avenue. I think any preservation organization, block organization, it would be good to write testimony on your own letterhead. And the reason is to sort of pull it away from 66th Street and 67th Street specifically, because this impacts far more than those 2 blocks. And when you have the only people testifying are those who have immediate impact, it actually demeans the importance of voting against the project, because people from all over the city should be opposing this, because any zoning change or new, this will affect everybody. So I'm going to be writing on behalf of Historic Park Avenue.
Thank
I
you,
encourage anybody on, any block association, any preservation group. I see there are 81 people plus the board that are still here. So anybody on there, just write it on your own letterhead, and you can get, there's an email where you can mail your deposition to it. It's on the city planning site, and maybe Will can post it in the chat. It's that 21
Right.
Depot 80M or something.
Yes, I was just looking for that. It's 21 DCP for Department of City Planning, 08 OM for Mary, __ D as in David, L Lucy at planning.nyc.gov.
Right.
And that references the documents for the scoping session. That's their file.
And it'll also receive your testimony. I encourage anybody to do it.
Right, but I want to make clear though, and anyone who is more familiar, and I know there are a bunch of you out there with the mechanics of a city planning or a ULURP application, is that the scoping session is designed to raise the questions that need to be addressed in the impact on the environment. And that doesn't just mean, it's not limited to air quality, it's not limited to shadows. It includes the residential character of the neighborhood, the historic character of a neighborhood. So as I mentioned in the document that I was looking at, which for those of you who are interested, it's a New York City planning. It's www.nyc.gov. It's New York City planning under applications. It's the environmental review process. It refers to seeker, and under scoping down the page, it refers to land use, zoning, and public policy. And this is why, and I'm sorry for going off on this tangent, and I know it's late, but this is why zoning can look at this separately from the land use committee, is because it specifically refers to zoning as a technical area with public policy that is that we're entitled to ask about and entitled to look at as part of their process. So it's land use, it's socioeconomic conditions that's often pretty far from what you might think of as the environment. It's urban design, neighborhood character, and many, many other things that relate to the environment, and it includes public health. So it's very broad and comprehensive in terms of all of the potential impacts. So if you have comments on whatever you think the blood center might impact, whether it's the height or the shadows, or you're in favor of it, those are all the areas that city planning looks at, again, minus the waterfront. Okay, I hope that clarifies it. So this is not really supposed to be an examination of the merits of the application, but looking for what do we want the blood center, and if I'm too repetitive, it took me a while to get this, what do we want the blood center to analyze in its environmental impact statement? Do we think, and do we want them to analyze its impact on neighborhood character, or on public health, or on shadows on the schools? What do we want them to look at in order to be able to get a full picture, in order to evaluate the entire scope of the project? And this is not to guarantee that it will be included in the requirements for their environmental impact statement, but if it's not included, it's outside the scope, and we're not allowed to look at that in their land use application. So if we say, what are the impacts up to 72nd Street, and someone on 79th Street says, well, I think it's going to cast a shadow these 12 blocks, and they have a study to prove it, it's too late, it's beyond the scope. So we have to be very careful.
But also, Lita, I just want to point out that the testimony does not necessarily have to all be in the form of questions. In other words, you can state your point of view, why you affirmatively think it might affect this or it might affect that. So it doesn't have to be that you're asking questions. If you've analyzed and and you have an opinion as to how it would affect any of those categories, you can write it in an affirmative way. I just wanted to make that clear. It doesn't have to be all question form.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Michelle. I'm glad that you did, because Michelle is right. My point was really to separate out these various areas of potential impact from the idea of the merits of the blood center or the merits of their proposal, because this is just part of the process of asking them to examine what impact they might have in these, I believe it's 19 specific areas. Are there any other questions or comments? Rebecca, is there anything else that you wanted to say, Rebecca Dangor, about the other old business item relating to the contact tracing?
And no, just
Okay.
that we really hope that we can count on the people who supported the resolution to make a fuss and make sure this gets signed. It's been too long.
Okay, thank you. And Billy has his hand raised. Billy?
Yeah, just to say that the vote in the last resolution was 45-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any new business items? Okay, well, before Rebecca, oh, okay, any? Going once, going twice? No? Okay, so I'm just going to say, stay tuned for all of this stuff. I hope all or some of you will come to the memorial program. I think to be frank, the responses I've gotten from the churches as I've reached out to has been really affirmative. I wrote to Weill Cornell, and I asked them, because so many people, I mean, clearly they were so involved in COVID, and they've spread the word about it. So it's been a lot of positive response, and maybe it will bring closure to some people. So if you don't want to participate, don't want to come, and there's a name you'd like read, just let me know. And if you do want to come, I think the community would appreciate all of the support that we have. It's just been such a tragic and devastating time for everybody in various ways, and it's not over yet. So wear your masks, social distance, stay safe. See you in January, and have a great holiday. And I will be emailing you about a board related thing that should be fun between now and then. So everyone stay safe, and thanks for putting up for this long meeting. So I will miss this more than I can say, but it's time to move on and take on other challenges. So thank you again. Is there a motion to adjourn? Rebecca Dangor.
Motion to adjourn, and thank you.
And lots of seconds. So the meeting is adjourned. Happy New Year.